Welcome back to episode 55 of the Oddcast. We're back in the studio. I'm back in Australia. And today we are talking all things Jeffrey Epstein because we know this is a burning topic for you guys. Grace Tame is back in the news again. And we have the biggest deregulation in history. What does this mean? We'll get into it. And of course, protests. What are they good for?
I have not been made this happy by a politician in a very long time. I cannot begin to tell you. So what is today's the 11th?
I thought you were going to say I've not been this happy after a massage in a long time.
I tell you what, if there was such a thing as a happy ending regulatory meeting, this is it. So
Mate, you've got some weird kinks.
I think it's tomorrow, US time, that Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the EPA, and Donald Trump are getting together at the White House and literally making the most consequential, the biggest single deregulation in the entire history of planet Earth. And it has made my freaking week.
Planet Earth, that means it's big.
Okay, the only time more regulations have been destroyed this quickly was when they burnt down Rome. Okay, like that's regulations don't go down. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, okay.
But it's about to happen.
Interesting.
And it's like, it's big, it's substantial, it's going to actually make a difference.
It's surprising to see you in a good mood.
Well, look, it's because normally there's more regulations, more rules, people being idiots. Finally, someone's being smart. I mean, that's all it takes to make me happy. Just someone be not a moron.
But there's a lot of these, like, what do you call it when you're like, the ceiling's cracking, you can see all these little bits of light filtering through. There's actually a lot of really good news, but people, as we have discussed, people don't like good news.
No, we haven't just discussed it, we've tested it.
Yeah.
When we do good news stories.
When we're optimistic, you guys tune out.
Yeah, you're just like, go and find me some doom.
Oh, what do these guys know?
Yeah, that's right.
You're not down the rabbit hole deep enough.
I've done good news videos and they tank every single damn time. So, I have to dress up my good news as doom and gloom and then
I was just about to say that. This is my new way of doing my reels for Instagram. Yeah. It's like come across all doom and gloom, but like slip in the optimism and people go, ooh.
It's like the deworming pill for your pet. You got to hide it in
Wrap
the
it
food,
in some ham or some bacon and just shove it down. Yeah, that's exactly.
You guys need to be dewormed of your doom and gloom and we have to hide the medicine.
So on the Epstein thing, a couple of weeks ago when we talked about it, and I was in Japan at the time, we were talking about the Australians that were on the list.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, because it was a segment, they misunderstood that because the context of the rest of the podcast was cut out.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify something. Topher and I have been talking about Epstein pretty much the whole way through.
We were talking about Epstein between ourselves before we ever started the podcast. The podcast obviously started early last year, which is around the same time Trump came in, and of course Epstein then became a big talking point.
We were talking about it
the whole time
before the left thought it was worth talking about. Right?
And then before the right suddenly changed their mind and decided that it wasn't worth talking about, and then eventually somehow everyone came around to talking about it again,
releasing millions of files.
It's been a hell of a ride.
It's interesting because I do have a lot of thoughts on this, but I just wanted to clarify just for the sake of people who misunderstood.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Australian names on that list and saying that until there is some kind of like hard evidence, whether it's a whistleblower, a maid, someone saying that they saw Paul Keating or Pauline Hanson there at the island getting a massage, it's like speculative at best, and redaction doesn't mean that you get to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. This is the thing. What we were talking about in that segment was a specific document that had gone viral, been passed around Australia, 260, I think, pages or so. The thing is, this document is now in evidence. So people go, oh, well, it's on the Department of Justice website, so it must be authoritative. No. It's been logged as a piece of evidence that came with a court case.
People misunderstood about this whole millions of files that have come out is everything's in there. Any email exchange, any text message, they could be completely benign. They have nothing to do with the greater case. It's just an email exchange, and people take that as, well, Joe Rogan was in the files.
That's right.
He must be a pedophile.
Hey, if all of my emails from all of my life ended up in some sort of a court case, Brad Pitt would be in the files.
He has
no idea he's in the files, but he's in there.
It's one of those things, and this is probably something we should hack into in this podcast, is people are bloodthirsty for drama, for doom and gloom, and if you don't give it to them, they then think that you're not deep enough in it, you don't know enough,
To be fair, in the case of Epstein, I think it's justified to be bloodthirsty for heads to roll, because it's very clear that heads should roll.
I mean, in a broader sense.
Yeah, but also, like, you still have to go through the process. We still actually need to maintain innocent until proven guilty, even in, and I would argue especially in, the most heinous cases that raise our blood pressure level the most. Those are the moments where miscarriages of justice are most likely.
Yeah.
We talked about this before the files came out, back when they completely fluffed the original release.
The binders.
And we thought they were actually releasing something of substance. In preparation for that, you and I talked about this on the podcast. There's going to be a bunch of names in there of people that have done nothing wrong, and and
you're implicating people who are completely innocent.
Yeah, there isn't some little black book that was kept by Ghislaine Maxwell that had the list of exactly who had done what.
Yeah.
That list doesn't exist. It has to be.
But not only that, we talked about this when it came to Harvey Weinstein, that if you don't get the charges right and have definitive proof so that when it goes before a grand jury or it gets up in court, it can't be dismissed. Because this is the thing that people, because they're so bloodthirsty and they're in such haste to see some kind of head roll, they don't care. They're like, just do it. And it's like, okay, but if we just do it, these people can get off on technicalities and walk. Because there's a thing in America called double jeopardy. You can't be charged for the same crime
Can't be prosecuted twice. So here's the problem. Me being in a good mood causes us to dive straight into the podcast way too fast. We haven't done word of the day.
No, I've even got the book in front of me.
More importantly, I haven't given you shit.
Looks like I'm not wearing pants.
Well, okay. So
I am wearing pants.
First of all, we're going part OnlyFans here.
You're showing a bit of leg, guys.
But also,
get those ratings up.
What's with the 55?
Yeah, it's bad, isn't it? I'm sorry.
You come back from Japan, you're going all like weird arty-farty on me. What happened?
I have all of our little doovers here.
All the little numbers.
You guys can't see them because I'm in the way.
Yeah.
And I cannot find our second 5. Now, if you remember correctly, I had to go and buy another sign to get extra numbers, and I don't know where it is. So we've got a reverse 2. I improvised.
We are living up to our name.
The Oddcast.
The Oddcast. I mean, that's right up there.
You do realise there is a term, and I am going to get this in the dictionary. Maybe it's an urban word at the moment. To MacGyver. This is MacGyvering. Oh, yeah, to
MacGyver something. That's, yeah.
This is MacGyvering. And us in the creative community, we are constantly MacGyvering. So I would say this is ingenuity. This is me just being incredibly
resourceful.
Yes.
Okay. Well, look, I'll allow it because I don't walk around with a spare number 5 on transparent plastic sheeting in my pocket, so I can't fix the problem. So we're going to roll with it. Well done. Yeah.
That's all I got.
To be fair, my father-in-law does have an inverted 5 serving, or an inverted 2 serving the function of a 5 on his letterbox.
Does he?
And he sees absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So you're in bad company, I guess?
Company?
No, definitely bad company.
Well, what would be the alternative to you? What would you say is a better problem solved for this?
Get a sheet of paper, texture it on, and slide it in there.
That would look so terrible.
In comparison to?
This kind of blends. Anyway, enough of this. What's your good news? You had your good news. Is that your good news?
Well, that's global. That is global good news. So we had chickens.
Yes, I've seen
makes it sound like my wife and I had chickens. No, the chickens had eggs, and then we incubated the eggs.
Did your chickens lay these hatchlings?
No. These we bought these. They're a different variety of chicken, and we've found out that's a problem. So we've had to create a separate little chicken run.
Oh, they're going to have chicken wars.
Apparently we're going to start some sort of a like cows with guns style chickens in choppers conflict.
Guns.
Yeah, it's going to get messy. So I had to spend a 40-degree day last weekend finishing chicken wire fencing, and we've had to go with the heavier grade of chicken wire. We went with the lightest, cheapest stuff for the first lot of chickens, and it turns out they might be bird brains, but they are persistent bird brains, and they will bend and flex that fence until they can get out.
They're descendants of dinosaurs. These guys don't have any rationality.
They're descendants of little shits. They are so frustrating. Anyway, they lay eggs. They give us little bonus food drops every day, so I forgive them.
But just on the dinosaur thing, isn't that a really sad way to see your DNA evolve? You went from being this big, mean-looking T-Rex to little chicken that we eat.
I think they were created entirely separately to begin with, so I don't buy into that at all. But yes. That's the popular view, so I'm not going to debate that here. But what we've got now is sort of two chicken factions. And they'll each have 5 members of their faction. The thing is,
Sounds like the Hunger Games.
We think there's a boy amongst the new ones. You can tell. Apparently, you can tell when they're first born, and then you can't tell for a while, and then they get old enough, and you can tell again.
Too many feathers, or
I'm not sure. So my wife reckons one of them's a boy. I don't know what she bases that on, but we can't have a rooster. That's just going to be annoying. And we already have a hen that's trying to be a rooster. We have a transgender hen. In the original group, the big group that we've
don't say that. That's going to the left are going to justify things.
Well,
it happens in nature.
It honestly tries to go in the morning. Like it can't do it, but it tries to crow when the sun comes up.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest.
It's an ambitious hen.
Very,
trying to break the glass ceiling.
Very ambitious hen. Anyway, right now we have the new chickens in a tub in our house.
In a tub?
In a big Tupperware thing in our house. We let them out and they run regularly.
It's got chickens in a Tupperware.
We've got chickens in a massive tub in our house because we have to keep them warm and blah, blah, blah. And they can't go out until their feathers are properly developed, which is still a week and a half or so away. So in 2 weekends' time, we get rid of these damn things out of the house. They smell so much. And they chirp so loud for little things. I mean, I know the tub amplifies it. It's like a megaphone on these little damn things. So loud. So my good news is that I got to build their hen house the other day, and we are counting down now to getting these smelly, stinky things out of my house and laying eggs and being productive for a
When
change.
do they start laying eggs that you can
I don't know, but they'd better hurry up because they're on the clock.
So now you'll have 10 chickens that are laying. How many eggs do they lay a day?
Well, probably 9 layers.
Yeah.
So typically they'll lay about 300 eggs each in a year. So they don't lay one every day, but they lay one most days.
Yeah, okay.
But then that declines after the first year. So the lot that we got last year are going to start declining pretty soon, and then this lot will come in and kind of make up that shortfall.
So what, do those chickens then become roast dinner? Or?
Well, no, because they'll still lay, let's say, 250 or 200 eggs in a year, but they won't be laying 300 anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I've got to feed my insatiable egg habit. Let's be honest. I literally keep them so I can eat their babies. That's.
You belong in the Epstein list too.
Well, maybe worse. So my good news is we're about to get rid of the chickens out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I'm so looking forward to sleeping through the night again because those damn things won't be chirping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we do a barter system where I'll make you sourdough, you bring me eggs?
I'm not eating sourdough at the moment. Yeah, sorry. I'm like 0 carb.
0 carb. Yeah. I should be after Japan.
You reckon that was a good pasta for you?
Yeah.
You still look fine. You don't look like you put on weight.
No, but I can tell. And yeah. G and I were talking about it last night. I was like, do you reckon we put on weight? He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, but we walked, I told you, over 200 something kilometres in the 2 weeks we were there. And I was looking back and I'm like, oh, the cheese coin.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Okonomiyaki.
It's like 1 kilometre, food. Another kilometre, more food. Another kilometre, food.
The more I thought back, I'm like, actually, let's not do that. Yeah. Do you know what I did buy? This isn't my good news, but with the cheese coin. So
I loved the cheese coin. That was one of the things that lived up to the hype.
Yeah, so this is the best one. We found them around the country, but the best one is in Dotonbori.
Yeah, that's where I had
That's the original, I think. Yeah. And it's also the cheapest, so that's 500 yen. Right. For those who don't know, that's just under $5.
Yeah.
Because the yen's really weak.
Yeah.
Our money went really far this time. Yeah. Anyway, so what it is it's basically pancake batter poured into a cast iron mold, and then they grab a big piece of mozzarella and shove it in there.
Yeah.
It melts, and then as you bite into this oversized pancake, it's like all super cheesy.
Yeah.
When it
is really good.
1 degree, it is the most delicious thing you've ever eaten. And you've been walking all day. Actually, again, this is not good news. I'd been meaning to say this for 2 weeks. Do you know who we bumped into in Dotonbori? Bald and Bankrupt, the YouTuber that I've talked about.
Yeah.
We're walking, and I mean, in Japan, everyone's quite short.
Yeah.
And so people stand out. And Bald's actually quite tall. He's about 6'3", I think. And G's like, hang on a minute. And he walks up to him. He's like, Bald. And then he's like, Ben. And he turns around. And I'm like, it's you. We watch you.
And was he like, oh, it's you. We watched the Oddcast.
No, he's like, oh, he was so drunk.
Yeah,
he was pissed. And we were talking to him, and he's like, oh, I won't put you on the YouTube because it's not a good episode. He's doing all the hentai and like the seedy underbelly.
Yeah.
But we were chatting to him for a little bit, and it was just really cool to meet someone. Like, I've been watching him since COVID.
Yeah, right.
He like got me through COVID.
Yeah.
So anyway, but my good news.
So what is, you keep on being like, this isn't my good news. I'm just going to talk for 5 minutes about something that doesn't actually fulfill the purpose of the segment.
People needed to know about the cheese coin.
They needed to know about Bald and Bankrupt.
I didn't finish my story. Okay. I bought a cast iron.
Buckle up, people. It's going to be a long
mold
episode. You bought a cast iron 10 yen mold.
Yeah, so I can make cheese coins here.
Wow. Okay. And are you going to do like sourdough pancake batter? Like what's the... You're just going to go for
to be honest, I don't know if I could eat one this week. It might have to wait a couple of days. So everything in Japan is sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit sweetened out.
Well, that was a funny thing for me because I associate Japanese food with fresh, high quality, relatively minimalist.
Common misconception.
Yeah. And then you get there and you realize, no, that's just the stuff that they kind of have
exported to make it look better
around the world. You know, your sushi and sashimi and your Wagyu beef done on Japanese barbecue style. Yeah. Like that's the minimalist stuff. The stuff they eat is
deep fried.
Is gobsmackingly bad for you.
100%. And this is a common misconception. And it's not until you're there that you realize, like you go into the conbinis, right? Your 7-Elevens, your Lawson's, Family Mart. Everything in there is hyper processed, and I don't know enough about their regulations when it comes to artificial colours and sweeteners and things like that. Yeah. But you know it's not good for you because everything is sickeningly sweet.
Yeah.
And that aside, you know, even the egg sandwich, the famous egg sandwich. Did you eat one when you were there?
I didn't have one of the ones I make a big deal about.
No, that's terrible for you. They are delicious.
I do like an egg sandwich,
but they're actually not real eggs. They're like reconstituted eggs.
Yeah. Okay.
And anyway. So lots of processed food, but then when you're going to all the restaurants and stuff, you try like okonomiyaki, you look at it, it's got half of a block of cheese on top of it for one serve.
Yeah.
The cheese coin, the mozzarella bits this big, you know, so like...
But so we went into the convenience stores, and obviously in Australia, you know, gas station sushi, petrol station sushi is a recipe for an early death. In Japan, the stuff is at least fresh. Like it turns over really quickly. So you can buy it with confidence that it's not going to try and kill you. But I would look at this refrigerated section, and I'm not on the diet at this point. This is my last couple of weeks before I'm like, okay, when we get back from Japan, I have to actually knuckle down and lose some weight. So I can buy anything I want, and I look at it and go, all of that is disgusting. It is so sweet and so processed, even for my non-diet form. I ended up just eating the sushi.
The onigiris, the little triangles.
I had a few of those, but honestly, just sushi rolls and sashimi. I would end up just going to the little cabinet with the tray, get some ginger, get some soy sauce, get some sushi and or some sashimi. And that's what I ended up eating from those places most of the time because everything else was just too disgusting.
I didn't do that.
Yeah,
I ate the egg sandwiches.
You ate the
I ate the pancakes.
Yeah.
I ate all of it. And it got to the point where G and I were like our last day in Tokyo. And this point, we're fried. We're tired.
Yeah.
We're over it.
It wasn't your food that was deep fried anymore. It was you.
Yeah, we were officially cooked. And we had a commute back from hell. But anyway, our last night we looked at each other and I'm like, I actually can't do Japanese tonight.
Yeah.
We were both like, Macca's as it is. We had Macca's.
I did have Japan Macca's once. And honestly, the burger was really underwhelming, but there was some other weird thing that they did that was very much like, this must be a Japan.
Oh, we didn't even do that. We went
really
Big Macs. Yeah, we just went old school.
No, the thing that was Japan specific, I actually really liked. And then the stuff that was just your generic American hamburger, I was like, this is not good.
Anyway, my good news.
Please.
Okay, so I had this idea. Well, actually, G started this conversation, so the credit is more his. And then I just took it to another degree. So we had this idea about making a colouring book.
Right.
And then I was thinking, I love history, and so few people seem to be interested in history. So I've come up with this idea of doing a dictator's colouring book for adults.
You've mentioned this before. I've heard this before.
I've started playing, and I should send you my first iterations. Now, the first thing I did was I actually researched this to make sure that if I do this, can I be done for some kind of defamation, some hate speech? Because obviously Hitler will be in there.
Yeah.
And Hitler's everyone's...
And there's going to be symbols and, or background,
well, you can't put Hitler in there without a swastika.
And you'd need like detailed background. The point of these colouring books is that you create lots of really detailed... grown-up colouring books have to be hard.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Let me just hide everything else on my browser so you don't see my history, and I will share this. Oh my God. There's too many tabs. Story of my life. All right, there we go. Can we see that? Oh, what's this last thing? Hang on. No one needs to know what I've been downloading. Go away. There we go.
The ChatGPT caricature trend is hilarious.
I'm
because
seeing
we have
what
been
people aren't
voluntarily
allowed to
handing
see.
over our lives to data-hungry
Where is this coming from?
for well over a decade.
It was on the screen for a second, and then you've
Gone. It's gone.
You
It's
killed
like
it.
that
Well
whole
done.
thing, like there's 20 tabs open
Yeah,
and I don't
and
know where the music's
yeah.
coming from. Yeah. All right, so this is Mao. We'll start with Mao because I don't want to show Hitler because then people will be like, ooh, she's a Nazi. Yeah.
So there's a few emaciated skeletons and things, but I just think you need. First of all, he's got too many hands.
Yes, we need to work on this, but these are just ideas.
Yeah. And there just needs to be like an open pit with bodies in it.
Well, so this is where we're at. These are just concepts. We're just spitballing here because obviously I want to teach history, but I don't want it to be too gruesome, and I also don't want them to be cute caricatures.
Yeah.
So this is like a fine line. So obviously this is AI, and I've just been playing around and seeing what we could do. And I will ask this to the audience: do you think these are too cute? As in, like, I don't want Stalin to be cute. I'm not trying to. Be like this is meant to be satirical, not.
Yeah.
And then obviously, where is he? Where's Uncle Hitty? Uncle Hitty is. Did I not send him over?
So you're concerned about people calling you a Nazi, and you're going to refer to him as Uncle Hitty?
Well, then you get flagged for this stuff. So I don't know where it is, but anyway, what do you think?
I think my feedback is they're not too cutesy, but there needs to be the humor or the meaning is in the juxtaposition. I think you need to have them be a bit more opulent, a bit more
over the top.
The medals on the chest and the symbols of wealth and other things like that, and then
I thought that, but I didn't want people to think that I was putting them on a pedestal.
No, because it's the juxtaposition against the reality of the background.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't put them on a pedestal. It shows how cruel and heartless they were.
So I think I did. Didn't I send the Hitler one? So the Hitler one, I was like, okay, obviously there'll be a SWAT sticker in it, but behind him will be the. I didn't. Here we go. Will be Auschwitz and the cars and things like that.
Yeah.
But this was the one that I was a little bit sort of, I don't want to cause issues. So just spitballing here. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean that it tells the story, but I think you've got to drive that juxtaposition further.
More gruesome.
Like the foot on a victim. Like actually really making it clear that you're telling this story. This person here is powerful and opulent and has the world at their feet. And what they've chosen to do with that power is to put everyone under their feet.
Yeah. So on one side will be the colouring and on the other side will be the story.
Okay. Yeah.
So it'll be like an adult colouring book that teaches history.
Yeah.
I just thought this was a fun little project.
So I've also recently had an idea for a colouring book. But you know how, we're always looking to sort of combine new things and in new ways that make it just more engaging, more interesting. We're always looking for something new. I thought, what if it was a colouring book, but people can actually draw their own lines first, right? And so what you actually do is you just have nothing on the page. And you're like, guys, it's a colouring book. I have not printed a blank page book. This is the instructions in the front.
It's a choose your own adventure.
It's a choose your own adventure colouring book. Draw your own lines and then colour them any way you want. I mean, it's the ultimate in creative freedom.
Yeah, maybe. But I think to get people more... So I did a little thing on my Instagram a little while ago called Bite Size History.
Yeah.
And it took me...
It went well.
It went really well,
Yeah.
but it took me a long time to do. And I would like to do more, but I'm one person. I don't have all these hours in the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, this could be a fun way because people like adult colouring books. And I was like, maybe we'll learn something.
Yeah. I just think if you don't drive that juxtaposition hard enough, that's when you'll get accused of glorifying.
But I have my list. Do you know who might be in that list?
Well, Pol Pot's got to be there.
Obviously
the ones that you've just shown us. Mao Zedong.
Mao Zedong?
Actually, no, he was there, wasn't he?
That was the first one I showed,
Yeah. Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, or Kim Il-sung, depending on which...
I was thinking of doing them in like a family portrait.
Oh, yeah, nice. I mean, there's a bunch of Idi Amin. Idi
Amin is in there for sure.
Yeah. Who else?
Vlad the Impaler.
The Impala. Yes, a deer that took over the world. Amazing.
The Impala.
I'm sorry. Move on.
Right.
Move on.
Right. Okay. Sorry. And then I've got Genghis Khan in there. That's arguable. Like, was he a dictator? Was he not?
He was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
He was completely careless for life. He would send his own men out to draw enemy fire, to draw the enemy into assaulting them, and then he would just have his own archers decimate absolutely everybody in that area.
Yeah. So he was a dictator. I've got Lenin in there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Hitler, obviously. Saddam Hussein.
Mm-hmm.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein, yeah.
Mussolini.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Gaddafi.
You've got to have Che Guevara.
Che Guevara wasn't ever in power, though.
Well, he was a revolutionary, and he certainly behaved as a dictator within...
Because I have Castro in there.
Yeah, Castro, obviously. I would argue Che Guevara behaved as a dictator over his armies and over those regions that were in combat, and he was responsible for an awful lot of unnecessary death.
Can I call him a dictator?
Okay. Technically, probably not.
Yeah, okay.
Because that requires a state, and he didn't have one.
I've got a few more here. Some of these I actually didn't know, but they're more recent than I realised. So we've got Rafael Trujillo in the Dominican Republic.
Trujillo,
1930 to 1961.
Yeah.
We have got Suharto in Indonesia. We have got...
That's going to get some people's noses out of joint, but yeah.
Oh, really? Mubatu Seseko of Congo, 1965 to 1997.
Yep.
And then we've got Bashar al-Assad from Syria. Maduro. What else? And number 50. And this is the one that I was like, defamation in Australia is our illustrious ex-premier Daniel Andrews.
Yes. Well, look, I think he's well worthy of inclusion.
Australia's first proper dictator.
Yes. Well, speaking of defamation, and I guess this is probably, I'm telegraphing a story that's coming up. Elon Musk has promised to defend and to pay for the legal costs of anyone that is sued for defamation or prosecuted for outing Epstein.
I did hear that.
Criminals.
Should that be where we start, Epstein?
Look, well, we still haven't done the word, but let's start with Epstein.
Let's do a quick word.
Let's start with Epstein after we have a word.
3, 2...
Now.
Left or right?
Left, middle.
There's only 2. Bottom one is oblige, which obviously we know. But then laconic.
Laconic. I am kind of familiar with it. It's like a kind of sarcastic or relaxed kind of...
All right. So Laconica was a region of ancient Greece, home to the fearless Spartans. For several centuries, laconic referred to anything related to the Spartan clan. The Spartans were proud and didn't mince their words, so they became known as rather abrupt and to the point. The modern meaning of laconic derives from this reputation and relates to the terseness and concise use of words. The word is often misused to mean laid back.
Yeah.
But it is explicitly the use of language in either speech or written form to which laconic should refer. And the example is, I am always slightly unnerved by the laconic emails I receive from an old friend, Jim. They are terse and lack warmth. I reckon people would describe me as laconic.
Quite possibly.
If they knew what it meant.
I will describe me as having been misusing that word because I understood it in that more relaxed context.
Laconic.
There you go.
There you go.
Laconic. All right.
Maybe I'm descended from Spartans. That's why I'm so
of
harsh.
Look, you can find whatever justification you want.
All right.
Other people have a different way of describing you, which I won't repeat here because it will get us banned.
It's described in your comment section. I've read it.
Guys, be nice to Carly.
No, they don't know how.
Carly.
Do you?
Sometimes
I worry.
I do. All right, Epstein.
Okay, so this has upset one side of the political sphere. Because, so before we get into this, we just need to set the tone for what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
We've been talking about Epstein, at length for over a year on the podcast.
Yep.
And we kind of got really miffed with it because it sort of was repetitive.
Yeah.
There was nothing new. It was the same old stuff.
It was repetitive because the Trump administration, let's be honest, completely mishandled the
binder
whole
thing
issue.
put us offside.
The Bondi thing, it's on my desk. Oh, no, it doesn't exist. Like, what is going on with that? That was ridiculous.
Total kerfuffle.
Yeah.
And we never doubted that there was sinister stuff in there, but until you see it and until there is like something that you can tangibly grab onto.
Substance. Yeah.
So the funny part about this, of course, is that the right have been arguing for the Epstein release for years. And then all of a sudden Trump gets into power and the left have decided that the Epstein files matter now.
Yeah.
And of course, their favourite, Trump, is in there. And he's in there over 1 million times, would you believe?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And now we know why. Because if we look at the screen, the ex-police chief says Trump told him, thank goodness you're stopping it, about Epstein in the 2000s.
Yeah. Now, there is actually, I don't know if you've got it there, but there's an email.
I do.
Okay, yeah, a screenshot of an email where someone was actually on the record, going on the record saying, Trump told me this, Trump told me that. And this is really, really important to understand. This is what we've talked about. Someone like Epstein, his job, and I personally think he was a CIA asset, but I'm happy for people to disagree with me with regard to who he was working for.
I think he was playing them all off against each other.
He may well have been. But fundamentally, his shtick was to compromise rich and powerful people so that others could get leverage over them, could get blackmail leverage over them. That was his shtick. So his job is to get out there and befriend everybody, figure out who's vulnerable, figure out who can get sucked in, and then suck them in, get them on camera, and hand that over to people who clearly paid him handsomely based on how he lived and how much money flowed through his hands. That's my theory on Epstein. And so, of course he met everybody. Of course he met the who's who. That's his job.
Yes.
Is to get out there, socialize, be affable, be delightful, host parties. Not every single party that he hosts is going to be one of his disgusting parties. He's got to do a whole bunch of hosting of a whole bunch of events to bring people into that world and to figure out who's who. He's got to show up to everybody else's events. And so, yes, he met everybody. The fact that Bill Clinton met Epstein doesn't mean anything. The fact that Bill Clinton repeatedly flew on Epstein's plane to and from the island starts to mean a hell of a lot more. But the fact that they met is by itself meaningless. Now, Trump had Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, I think on a few occasions, but on one occasion, it blew up that he had harassed one of his staff members and he banned him from Mar-a-Lago. He then says in this email, which I think you're still
I'm trying to find it. I thought I saved it, but I'm looking.
I think I sent it to you as a link in Facebook Messenger. I think if you dive
Was
into
it
Facebook
Messenger or did you send it to me on here? I think you sent it to me on my phone. Hang on.
Might have been on text, one or the other. It talks about the fact that Trump saw Epstein at a party with teenage girls and he got the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Then the minute anything hit the news with suspicion about Epstein, Trump called the Palm Beach police. Yeah. There it is. He actively went to the police and said, listen, let me tell you what I know in order to support that court
I'm going to try and read this. It's actually a bit illegible, but so this is what the email says. Trump knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. She is evil and to focus on her. Mm-hmm. Trump told Redacted that he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present and Trump got the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein. Mm-hmm. No one could explain how Epstein made his money. They knew he worked for Bear Stearns. Sorry, this is really hard to read.
Big financial firm.
Redacted was told that Epstein was kind of a technical guy, that it would make it happen, but you didn't want to know how. None of the victims that PBPD spoke with said they had sexual contact with men other than Epstein while in Epstein's orbit. Redacted had one time went out screaming. Prince Andrew was a fixture in the Palm Beach area and he had no protection whilst there. Redacted has done interviews in the past with Redacted. People's victims thought they had PPPD.
So the PBPD is the Palm Beach Police Department.
Got you, okay.
So they thought the Palm Beach Police Department was being paid off by Epstein.
Right. And Redacted went there to do interviews. He felt he needed to defend PPPD. An interior designer told the PPPD that rooms in the Virgin Islands had been decorated for teenage girls. Redacted contacted the Virgin Isle Police Department, but they were not helpful. In the end, when Epstein had turned himself into plea to the misdemeanor, Redacted was not notified and found out from the newspaper.
Yeah. So this is obviously just one fragment, and we're talking millions of documents.
Yeah.
And all it is fragments. It's like a jigsaw puzzle made out of glass where every single piece has then been pounded with a sledgehammer. Right?
And now
all you've got is shards,
yes.
and you've got to try and put them back together and make a picture that means something.
I saw this tweet and I thought this was interesting because Trump does love having leverage. So obviously we've got a Democrat and Thomas Massie who are trying to come together. They're naming people under parliamentary privilege. And this one here says, it's funny how he and Massey think they are forcing the release of this information. Trump wants it. He's forcing it. He is drip feeding it, but must remain neutral. I can tell you for 100% certainty that absolutely 0% of this would have come out if Trump had not been elected, despite what this guy says.
I think that's absolutely correct. Now, Massey's one of the good guys in the world. I've got a lot of time for Thomas Massey.
He and Trump don't get along, though.
He and Trump do not get along because Massey is right about debt. This is one of the big points. There's a few other points of conflict as well. But Massey is...
It was over the big, beautiful bill, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct. Massey's a libertarian.
Yeah,
Massey's the closest thing to a libertarian besides Rand Paul. Even Rand Paul, I think, has wavered at times. He's generally really good, but I think he's wavered at times more than Massey. And so Massey's sitting there going, Trump, you have this historic opportunity to basically save the US Republic by getting our spending under control and stop us from bankrupting ourselves. And Trump comes out there, he says some of the right things before the election, then comes out with his big, beautiful bill, which is a massive spending bill. You know, Musk, who was on board the Doge project, has come to realize cutting spending is almost impossible. The only way out is growth. And that's a strategy that can work, but not if the debt is growing faster than your economy can possibly grow. Like, there needs to be some restraint. So Massey's right. And Trump has threatened to try and primary Massey and get him out of the Republican Party. And there's all this bad blood between them, which is a shame, but that's how it is. But whoever wrote that comment is absolutely correct. I mean, Massey, yes, is trying to force things and push things along, etc. But fundamentally, this stuff came out because Trump said, I want this stuff in the public domain.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to point out the things that made him look good. They were always going to come to the surface and be put out. He didn't front foot with, oh, but hey, have a look at this.
Yeah.
You know, I was the first one. He didn't have to do any of that. He can sit there, be the bad guy for a couple of months, and then slowly the truth catches up. And he's a patient man. He knows that the truth's going to catch up.
Well, as I was trying to find that email until I found it, I was looking at news that has come out recently. And obviously Australian news is going in on Trump being the evil one. He's the one that's been... So as the Australian news is trying to get ahead of this. And now when something like this comes out, they're not going to touch it.
No.
They're not going to even let you think that Donald Trump could possibly be the good guy.
Yeah.
But
or at the very least, just not the bad guy. I mean, I think he was the good guy. He seems to have been one of the only ones who actually risked that you know, his position. Because when you go against somebody who's in that elite set, in that crowd, you put a bunch of people offside. And anyone that's on Epstein's side, or anyone that just hasn't woken up to who Epstein really is, you potentially lose the invitations to those dinner parties and those social events, which is business networking opportunities and contacts and money-making opportunities. This is how that world works. Trump was willing to jeopardize all of that.
Yeah.
And when very few other people were.
Yeah, and so I was looking at ABC's coverage of this, and even they are having to be neutral here because they know they're... sorry, I might make it on the other screen. I'll go... There we go.
Yeah. Good. Better.
The ABC know that there's nothing in there that alludes to him actually doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, he's mentioned in there, but as you just said, Trump was a fixture in the big social circuit and he was going for president.
Yeah.
So, but what annoys me about this is there's so many other people in here who deserve far more criticism. Like Bill Clinton, for example.
Yeah.
We know he had an affair with Monica Lewinsky and it was a massive kerfuffle. He is named in this. Why aren't people coming down on that? And Hillary is still leveraged as like this powerhouse of the Democrat Party. I would argue they are behind the scenes pulling strings. That, of course, there's no accountability for these guys. And this is where I get lost. And I'm just going to make this statement. I don't respect any of these people if you can't even hold your own team accountable. This is where I get really frustrated.
Yeah. If you don't have the same standards for everybody, then you don't have any standards at all.
Yeah.
You either have a principle that you will stand by irrespective, or you don't have principles.
Yeah. And so I've seen a lot of, what do you call them, like influencers, online content creators who are more left-leaning, coming out talking obviously about Trump being evil, ICE is evil, and now with the Epstein, Trump's a pedophile. I'm like, see, I can't give you any credibility because nowhere, anywhere has there been any proof, not even a slight proof that Trump is a pedophile.
Yeah.
Yes, he is in the Epstein files.
Yep.
Yes, Trump used to own the Miss Universe pageant.
Yep.
Yes, Trump has been a bit of a ladies' man.
He's gone through a bunch of marriages, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to hold him up as some paragon of moral virtue.
No, and no one is.
To be fair, I'm not going to hold myself up as some paragon of moral virtue either.
But this is where I get really offside with people, especially people who feel like they need to weigh into this commentary. None of us, if you were put in a glass house, would be able to stand there without sin.
And especially, and forget without sin, without there being the perception of sin, because people read into things so deeply. I mean, yes, we have all sinned. We none of us would survive in reality. But when you add to that the warped perception that people apply, the minute you're not on their team, they will find fault with you. And you experience this all the time in the comments on segments that go up and so forth. People find fault with you for the most ridiculous things. And here's the thing: if you fixed all those things, they'd just find something else to find fault with.
Can I give you a funny anecdote?
Okay.
This might be a tangent.
Tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time.
I'm calling it. We need to cut the fourth one.
For the record, I don't know what you mean with that fourth one. I sing it exactly the same as all the others. I
feel the labour.
I think you're just being really picky.
I am. I have incredibly high standards. Incredibly high.
Yeah, anyway, what is it? What is our tangent?
Okay, so I was on the Life Uncut podcast and it came out. So for those who don't know, this is one of the highest rating female-led podcasts in the country. It's
so it
not
gets
a small
like
podcast.
5 viewers.
No, they get millions a month. Bigger than you and I, sadly. And
must be because they're all female.
I'm
holding us down. I'm sorry.
They were up for an actor, if that means anything to you, like a.
Not really, but hey, congratulations to them.
Yeah, they didn't quite win it. Shameless won it. And the reason I bring this up for you guys is I know that we have a predominantly male audience, especially yours.
Yep.
And we like to think that we know everything, but you are missing out on key parts of information channels like these podcasts that are led by women that are predominantly left. And I will say this: these two girls that interviewed me were absolutely lovely. I get along with them like a house on fire.
Yep.
We see politics differently, but there was no animosity. They weren't rude to me. They invited me on. They knew how I felt.
Yep.
They, just for the record, they found me.
Yeah.
They found me through one of my reels. They interact with me and they invited me on their podcast. I didn't elicit them. I didn't go out there and go, hey guys, like I'm this person. Anyway. So my episodes come out and it's just about beauty standards and AI, exactly what I wrote my thesis on.
Yep.
And I played it to G before I approved it to go up, which is really nice of them. They said, are you happy with everything? I was like, yeah, great. Like, off you go. I love the idea of like them editing. We don't. We just put up 3 hours of rubbish. They're like, just let us know if we need to edit anything. Yeah. Anyway, and as expected, I did get, the usual trolls. But one of the comments really stood out to me because I remember having this conversation with you about 6 months ago. I said the reason I was doing my master's is because for me to go where I want to go, I'm going to have something to pin it to.
Yeah.
I can't just
Some
be like...
sort of social proof.
Right?
Yeah.
Not because I feel like you need to have a tertiary education, just by these standards, the measurements.
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of institutional backed proof that you are allowed to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kid you not, verbatim, this comment was, her expertise is overinflated. She has a degree and a 2-year master's. Hardly worth talking about.
Yeah.
She's not an expert. And in that, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, sure, you can say that. Do you live up to those expectations?
Yeah. It's the bar. They'll keep raising the bar, and every time you meet it, and then
I'll get a PhD, and they're like, "Oh, she's only got a PhD."
Yeah, that's right. So this is the thing. You got to realize there are people that want to hate you.
Oh, 100%.
And if you're in the public eye, this is true for every single person. And for those that haven't heard it before, the revelation came for me well over 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago now, when I was grappling with online hate to do with climate change commentary, and I was such an idiot. I thought I could actually win people over if I just kept surely. No, you can't. And what I realized was there's literally nothing you can say on the internet that someone won't hate you for.
Yeah.
And my thought experiment is this. If you go on the internet and you say, I like kittens, right? This has got to be the most innocent. Like, everybody loves kittens, right? Like, this,
you didn't mention dogs, therefore you hate dogs.
Correct. How, dogs are better. Or, better yet, don't you know what they do in the breeding puppy farms and, kitten farms? Don't you care about animal rights? Or some idiot's going to get on there and be like, we shouldn't own animals. They're sentient creatures, don't you know? Like, honestly, you can't even say, I like kittens on the internet.
No.
And if enough people see it, people are going to hate you for saying that. And so I had this little revelation of, either I just disappear entirely, which I'm too much of a loudmouth, or I just accept in advance that people are going to hate me for every single thing I post.
Yeah.
So then when someone comes at me with hate, it's not a case of, oh no, someone hates me. It's like, oh, there you are.
I've kind of done I've done a bit of an opposite, and someone got really upset with my commentary last week because they're like, oh, it's how unprofessional. Because I kind of enjoy being a cat amongst the pigeons.
Okay.
Couldn't
tell.
I really like to light that match and just go.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Zoolander, here we come. Yep.
Occasionally I'll get in there and just like, I'm not pleasant. I'm not trying to be nice. You just to be clear, you wrote the nasty comment about me. And you're saying I don't get a right of reply.
I return serve. Absolutely. If someone serves, I'll return serve. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, the way she spoke, and I can't believe you do that. Like when people come at me for swearing on the podcast, of which I have curbed significantly.
I'm pretty sure I swear more than you now.
You say the C word.
Well, for dramatic effect when appropriate, yes.
But your audience is like, oh, Topher can do no wrong.
Yeah, no, that's right.
This Jezebel that's with him.
It's because I can't do wrong.
Yeah.
Because they're right, yeah.
But you know what will happen, though? This is what happens. Not that I want this to happen to you. It just happens to everyone that's on a podium. Eventually, you'll say the wrong thing. They'll be like, oh, you've lost me, Topher.
Oh, no, I get that already. Anyway, finish your point, and then I want to make my point, and then we better move on, because we're literally just talking about ourselves at this point.
No. I was going to say, so when it comes to all this sort of stuff, there's disqualifiers. If you ideologically or politically disagree with someone, you're done. That's it. You don't get to have any commentary. There's this expectation that you need to have a qualification in the field of which you want to speak about. So, not to bore everyone about tertiary education, but the whole point of doing a master's is to say you are a master at research.
At X. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you are you have mastered the art of researching a topic and writing a thesis. That's what a master's degree is. No, it's not a PhD. A PhD is you are a master on this itty bitty tiny
and also more
topic.
to the point, the PhD requires that you're pressing into new territory.
Correct. You have to write something new.
A master's, you can be researching existing knowledge and get a master's. Yeah. The PhD requires you're adding to that body of knowledge.
Correct. And it's also very specific.
Yeah, over time your education goes on and you get to know more and more about less and less until eventually you know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing. And that's what we call education.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. Yeah. But my point is, I find it funny. I'm not offended by this comment. I just find the expectations hilarious. So we've said that you need to be educated, because you know how people say, go educate yourself. Yeah. Okay, I did. I educated myself and I came out with high distinction and a master's degree. Oh, that's not enough because it was in photography. So that disqualifies you. Until we all have, guys, this is the new expectation from the left. Yeah. You need to go and have multiple degrees in every field of research that you could possibly ever be interested in. And if you don't, you're not allowed to speak on it.
You forgot a very important thing here. That's true.
Unless
you're brown, gay, transsexual, a whale.
Yes, there's always a caveat.
If you have any of the intersectionality characteristics, then
but as a
you
white
qualify.
cis woman,
you're fucked. You're nothing. And as a white cis man, even with all of that, they still won't listen.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with my trolls at the moment. So I only have a few. They usually don't stick around for all that long. I think my most persistent trolls are usually only a few weeks, and then they kind of go.
We've lost Jim.
We've lost a few good ones along the way.
Jim gave up on us.
But I got called a fat fuck for a long time because I put on weight. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's true. I'm fat. Okay, yep, sure. Now I'm losing weight. And they're like, oh, it's Ozempic. Or I did my interview with John Lott up in Sydney, and obviously background's different environment. And they're like, oh, it's AI. He's using AI to put in a fake background and make himself look like he's losing weight and blah, blah, blah. I'm like honestly, guys. Yeah, and I've had a lot of criticism about my teeth over the years. I've got really bad teeth. I grew up in a poor household. We had no money. There was no way in hell I was getting braces as a kid, and I still can't financially justify it as an adult, even though I would like to, just to try and fix my breathing. But I know. So right now they criticize me for my teeth. I'm like, what a dumb, this is literally proof that I did not grow up with money. It's proof that I'm self-made, right? But if I ever get my teeth fixed, then they're going to criticize me for oh, look at how vain this guy is, And you're like, well,
you can't win.
I literally can't win, which means I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
I'm not going to care about these people's opinion or try and impress them or try and ameliorate or reduce to any degree the kind of laconic sort of attitude that they have towards
me.
Me. Thank you.
I knew that was coming. I was like, I can't interrupt him.
No, because honestly, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And it's the same in politics. You don't try and appeal to the people who will never vote for you no matter what you do. Write them off.
Yeah.
Don't because every bit of energy you spend on them is energy you're not spending where you can make a difference.
Zooming out, not looking at just us specifically, just social media in general, the comment section in general, and the way that we approach everything. Would you say that this globalization, where we have all become tuned in to what's happening on the other side of the world, and we're invested in people that we've never met, don't know anything about, have no context for, and we have these arbitrary rules in our mind that we're expecting people who don't even know us to live by, and then we're always feeling underwhelmed or disappointed because they fall short of those. Is that a modern phenomenon? Because when you think about 50 years ago, the most people you knew lived within a few kilometres of you.
Yeah. So the definition of a public figure is someone that members of the public feel entitled to have an opinion on, even though they've never met. That's once a significant percentage of the public has an opinion on you, having never met you. If you go, what do you think of Joe Bloggs? Never heard of him, don't know who you're talking about. Well, that's not a public figure, right? What do you think of Joe Bloggs? Oh, that guy's an asshole. He's a public figure, right? And there's the line from the I don't know, song All American Rejects or whoever it was. I don't care what you think as long as it's about me. Right, and this is the pathway to being a public figure.
Yeah.
You have to choose not to care what people think.
Yeah.
If they have an opinion, you're winning.
Yeah.
Right. So your haters,
You're in their mind.
Your haters are actually a part of your pathway to success because they have an opinion on you. The people, if you want to be a public figure, the people you need to look out for are the ones that are like, who?
Indifference.
No, yeah. Well, that's the worst one. They know who you are and they're indifferent. That's the worst because now you've lost them. The people who don't know who you are and the people who don't care who you are, even though they know. Those are the two groups. The ones that love you and the ones that hate you are actually much of a muchness.
Yeah.
It's like you just need people to have an opinion. And this has always been true in politics, in culture, in entertainment and arts, even in business. This has always been true. So I would say that what we're observing today has always existed, but now we can see it on a scale and it's preserved.
Yeah.
So the scale on which it happens is enormous. And where previously maybe a negative interaction because you walk past some business person that you've never met before, but he shut down the company that your uncle worked for and you've hated his guts ever since. You walk past him in the street and you'll give him a verbal. There's no record of that. There's no history of that. You can't Google search it later. Nowadays it's all preserved and it's all kind of there. So I think it's an amplification of a interrelational dynamic that's always been there.
So speaking of echo chambers, right, you would know that, we were just talking about the Epstein files and how poorly that has all been handled.
Yes.
Now we've got the new race for the presidency in 2028, is it?
2028's the next election, yeah.
And you know how they're trying to put up Gavin Newsom?
I'm not paying much attention. I'll be honest, you probably know more about this than I do right now. I'm not paying a lot of attention to that right now.
I thought it was interesting. This is probably not really worth talking about, but Annie Leibovitz, the celebrity photographer,
yes.
photographed him like...
One of the only photographers whose names I know, and it's only because when we were in London, my wife saw an Annie Leibovitz big folio book and was like, oh, we should get this for Carly. And I'm like, there is no way that's going home in our luggage. This thing weighs 14 kilograms by itself. And that's the only reason I know that name.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I actually have a couple of her books. Her early work was wonderful.
Right.
I'm not going to talk about Annie right now. But so she's just done a photograph. I think it was for Vanity Fair. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
This is Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
And
Trying to humanize himself, yeah.
I just want to point out this photo. Are you seeing what I'm seeing here? Tell me if you see what I'm seeing.
1, 2, 3.
Remember, this is he hasn't come out and announced it yet, but this is who people are assuming is the lead Democrat candidate.
So I can see 3 ugly, hairy animals and a couple of his dogs. Is that what I'm supposed to be able to see here? No. Look, that's a lovely family photo. He's humanizing himself. Obviously, politicians do that.
You're missing it. You're missing
what
the key point.
The fact that the dog in the front looks like he's about to go and poop.
He's white. It's a white family. They all have blonde hair. They have dogs.
That are
and
white.
They're all dressed in traditional bloody sundresses.
Please tell me he's getting roasted for
They're
this.
all American family. This is right-wing trad wife propaganda,
Please tell
is
me
it
that
not?
the Democrats are roasting him for this.
Nope. It's lost on them. It was so jarring to me. I saw this and I was like... So this is what I find hilarious. The Democrat people, the followers, the disciples of these elitists, this will fall short of their view.
Yeah.
What you are now showing is that Gavin Newsom knows that the trans rights,
that's all gone.
The DEI is not winning people over.
Yeah.
He needs to represent the all-family man, the dad.
Yeah.
He's just a dad to 3 girls, and they all wear cute little dresses like that, and they frolic out in a field.
Yeah.
The only thing missing from this is honestly a pickup truck and an American flag.
Yeah, it is very all-American idyllic. And I don't have a problem with that, but it's, as you're pointing out, the hypocrisy. And
so
I think
in the comments, again, people are like, hopefully our next president, the cute pups, this is amazing, what a perfect family, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This is the guy who single-handedly has destroyed California, who, the Palisade fires and all that.
If Sydney Sweeney can't get away with doing an all-American style photo shoot, then why can Gavin Newsom?
I just find it hilarious because talk about good news. The pendulum we talk about swinging, it's swung. It's already there.
And the evidence is all around us. It's amazing. Before we move on too far from the Epstein stuff, we need to finish it with Elon Musk. I mentioned it briefly during the intro. Beg your pardon.
Do we want to watch this ABC clip quickly? Because ABC, obviously in America, is a big lefty news site. So they've been forced to admit that Trump came out. So.
This morning, a new document coming to light claims in the mid-2000s, President Trump called police about Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice last month is a 4-page FBI report on an interview the Bureau conducted in 2019 with a man believed to be former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder. Ryder and his detectives began investigating Epstein for human trafficking in 2004. According to the document, Trump called Ryder around that time and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Ryder also says Trump said he threw Epstein out of his club, and he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and Trump got the hell out of there. The former police chief says Trump told him to focus on Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she is evil.
Did you have any suspicions that he was molesting young women,
No, I had
underage
no
women?
idea. I had no idea.
Trump has long denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but Ryder says Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein.
They had to get in there with a Trump lie, didn't they?
Yeah, interesting. And it's that thing of he's also like he's got the political game to play, and there's also that thing of what did he actually know? Because if the question is, did you know about what he was doing with underage girls? Well, no, but I was deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's like, this is the thing that ABC won't explain, is that he said, no, I didn't know of the exact crime.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I didn't bear witness to it, but I knew it was dodgy.
Yeah, I mean,
Very different question.
Dodgy enough to kick him out of his Mar-a-Lago resort, and dodgy enough to have made that report to the police. So clearly, yes, he knew something. But did he know? No. Did he have evidence of the crimes? Is he going to go on the record at risk of defamation, what have you? Well, no. I think it's probably fair enough that he doesn't. But speaking of defamation, this is the significance of what Elon Musk has done. Musk has come out and said, if you are a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, any of that world, and you're holding back on coming out because you don't want to be sued for defamation, you don't want other lawsuits, you make yourself a target. The minute you start naming other people, okay, Jeffrey Epstein can't sue,
Elon Musk
but
said
other
he is
people
prepared to cover the legal defense costs of Epstein victims who choose to speak publicly and tell the truth. So according to Musk, if any victim is sued for naming alleged abusers connected to Jeffrey Epstein, he will personally fund their legal defense so they can respond without fear of financial retaliation. The pledge came after a Super Bowl PSA featuring Epstein victims. Several women in the ad urged Attorney General Pam Bondi to support their push for accountability. Journalist Matt Walsh questioned why women had not publicly named their alleged abusers, suggesting that they could disclose names to members of Congress who are protected from defamation liability when speaking on the House floor. Now, Musk replied directly to Walsh's post, writing, quote, "I will pay for the defense of anyone who speaks the truth about this and is sued for doing so."
Yeah. So this is massive now. Everything's public. It's very clear that Trump wasn't the one suppressing it. It's all, is everything out? I don't know. But there's now millions of documents out there that people are now forensically combing through to paint a picture. We also know that the Department of Justice has the unredacted copies of all of those documents. So all the names and people that are being protected, whether they're victims, witnesses, police officers in the case of that, the document that we read earlier, we believe that the redacted person is the former chief of the Palm Beach Police Department. They know all those people, all those names.
Yeah.
So the bit that's missing is essentially the lawsuit. It's the witness that's willing to go forward and stand in the dock.
Which is what I was saying the other day.
Yeah.
Until we have that thing.
Yeah. And so what Musk is identifying and what Matt Walsh was identifying, why don't women come forward and at least tell a member of Congress or something? This is the last piece of the puzzle. We need the victim who's going to be willing, and I know it's hard. I'm not having a go. It's traumatic what they've been through, and it's traumatic to relive it, and it's terrifying because if the case doesn't go well, then there's all kinds of backlash and what have you. And Musk is saying, I'm going to take the financial side of that risk. It would still take courage, but he's taking the financial risk on behalf of those people. I think well done. I think that deserves massive respect. And I, like everyone, I want to see rich and powerful people responsible for these sorts of crimes actually pay 100%. A price. I think there's very few people that don't want to see that. And this is a really important sort of last, I don't know if it's the last, but it's a really important step. We need victims to come forward to be willing to name and shame.
The other thing is too, there were some victims speaking up, and House and Habit, actually Jessica Krause, has been covering this for 5 years now.
That's true. There are people that have come forward and named and shamed.
But the issue with those people who came forward, they were, and I'm just to be clear, I'm not minimizing this, but it's just something that's worth talking about. The victims who came forward were all of age, and they were all consenting to a degree.
To a degree. They've been manipulated,
yes.
but
not to say that what happened to them was right or anything like that, but there's a difference here.
Yeah.
You could, and the reason I say this is in a court where
it makes all the difference.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, you were coerced, and this just happened in the Cassie Ventura Diddy case. So what happened to Cassie was horrific for 10 years, but the jury the jury was like, well, she was there by choice. Yeah. She could have left.
She had agency.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes to these victims who are currently already speaking up, they have made a lot of money off doing that, which paints things also a bit ugly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, there's an incentive. Maybe you're over embellishing. And this is where things get murky. What I kind of want from this is like that definitive whistleblower that comes out and just has the irrefutable proof that this happened. Here's the friggin' photo. I'm finally ready.
Well, here's where it gets really tricky, though, is there'd be people, and this is true of all kinds of different, cases, but particularly involving underage people and people who are vulnerable, having an asymmetrical relationship with someone who's got an enormous amount of power. Often they don't have the irrefutable proof. That doesn't exist. And even if they had a photo, unless it's a photo of the act happening, and even then, the defense is going to argue, well, you consented, prove that you didn't.
Yeah.
It's
murky.
There kind of isn't such a thing as irrefutable proof. And this is why I think what Elon Musk is doing is so important. Because there is no guarantee, no matter what one of these women has, there is no guarantee that the case will actually go their way, which means that they're at risk of life-altering counter lawsuits and defamation lawsuits and all kinds of things. So I'm not for a moment pretending it's easy, but we need, if we're going to see people being held to account, we need the victims to be willing to stand in the dock and sit there and say, even if it ends up just being their word against someone else's word, to be willing to put their word to it. And that's a massive risk. And I think what Musk is doing is really important.
Okay, we're going to move on to another story. This has popped up. I don't know if you know much about this. This is happening in the UK, where the Ministry of Justice has ordered the deletion of the UK's largest court reporting archive.
Yes.
So I actually asked Grok about this because Tommy Robinson posted about it. And I was not entirely sure that Tommy Robinson wasn't being that wasn't hyperbole.
Over the top, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the original post from Tommy Robinson. It says, it was transcripts detailing the horrific abuse of British children at the hands of predominantly Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, circulating on X that sent people over the edge and pushing for a harder inquiry. Now, the same week that Robert Lowe holds his private inquiry, Labour's Ministry of Justice has ordered data analysis company Court Desk to delete its large archive of court records. They're now trying to destroy mass evidence of the crimes. So when I asked Grok what was going on with this, he said, yes, there is absolutely substantial truth to this. The deletion order is real. The UK Minister of Justice, under the current Labour government, has ordered Court Desk, a private data analysis company, to delete its large archive of court records. It was a government-approved pilot project that started in 2021 that collected and organised magistrates' court data, so listings, registers, outcomes, to help journalists monitor cases more easily. It was used over 1,500 reporters from dozens of media outlets. And this is all happening early Feb 26. And I find it really interesting, the timing. It's a bit.
I mean, this is cover up, but this has been a cover up the whole way through. And Tommy Robinson's been on the cutting edge of this. He's paid an enormous price for bringing this to the public's attention. So, unfortunately, again, rich and powerful people are using their positions of power to try and cover their tracks. In this case, it's not necessarily perpetrators who are trying to cover their tracks. It's people who failed to hold perpetrators accountable. It's the failed justice system. It's the politicians who covered it up because it was going to cost them too many votes.
Is it more so like I think these people, if they weren't implicated or it wouldn't make them look bad or jeopardize their political career, they would probably we want these people held accountable. But do you think there's an element of this is just self-preservation?
Oh, I think it's 100% self-preservation.
Yeah.
These are the people that were involved in the cover-up.
Because there's people saying that the politicians who want the cover-up are actually implicated. I'm like, no. It
don't
just
think
makes
so.
them look bad.
Yeah,
This
correct.
is how superficial all of this is.
This is, it's that thing of if you tell a white lie, well, then you have to tell a bigger lie to defend the white lie, and then you end up in this position where you're just fabricating things, and you're like, how did I end up here? Well, it's because you told a white lie to start with. This is how it worked. The politicians that supported immigration began to hear rumours and rumblings that there were issues with Pakistani rape gangs, and they went, well, hang on, this can't be that bad to start with, dismissive and what have you. Like, oh, these people wouldn't really be like that. But also, if word gets out about this, then our immigration strategy is under threat. And that's not only ideological, it's also financial. We know, for example, that Australia would be in a recession if it weren't for immigration artificially pumping our GDP numbers, because GDP per capita went backwards for quite a long time. It was only the addition of new people that kept our economy growing on paper. So they've kind of got a lot of big political outcomes. They don't want to lose the minority vote by shutting down immigration or by being seen to target immigrants. They don't want to have the bad economic news by shutting down immigration and therefore not having the growth in the GDP. And they're ideologically on board a certain worldview that says that immigration's a good thing, and the white, it's this weird sort of mix of white self-hatred mixed with white savior syndrome. We're going to save them all by bringing them into our wonderful country. And all of that's on the line. And so they minimize it the first time, or they find a way to bury it the first time. But now they have to do it again, because if they allow it to be seen the second time it comes around, well, then they might get found out for having buried it the first time.
Yeah.
And then before they know it, 5 years down the track, they're covering up wholesale failures of the justice system. They're literally letting rapists walk free back on the streets. They're welcoming more of them into the country, knowing full well what's going to happen. And I think for some of them, they're just sitting there going, how the hell did I get here? And for others, their conscience is so scarred, it still wouldn't actually bother them even at that
Someone
scale.
like Keir Starmer, though, like, he's toast. We know he's toast in the next election, but there's what,
Have you
three
seen,
more
have
years?
you seen, did you see his hand shaking under questioning about Epstein the other day?
No.
Okay, so there's a video, Carrie Badenoch, who I think is effectively the opposition leader, was questioning him because he supported, I don't know the details, he supported the appointment of someone who's deeply implicated with Epstein.
Right, okay.
And she was applying the blowtorch to him in a way that we don't see in Australian politics very, very much. And there was a bit of a back and forth, multiple questions, follow-up questions, and she finally got really specific. This is exactly the question that I am asking you. And Keir Starmer had to acknowledge that the accusation was right, that yes, blah, blah, blah. And his hand, he moves his hand, and it's shaking so much that even on a relatively wide shot, you could just see it on his hand. And then he grabs it with his other hand to try and stop this hand from just betraying.
Yeah.
Like, this is a man on the very edge of his nerves.
Yeah.
He knows he's done. He knows he's toast. And it's probably not going to take until the next election for him to have to step down.
Yeah, I mean, the UK is in serious trouble. Do you know who else is like, we've talked about him a few times, Piers Morgan. He's
doing some good work now.
But he's not. He's
You
denying
reckon?
that immigration and Islam is
he's
having
doing some good work on some issues. Yeah.
Yeah, some of this is what I mean. He flip flops. I find Piers Morgan so insufferable.
Hang on. We've got to go back to the basket of goods. Is he flip-flopping, or is he changing his position on some policies where you agree and not changing his position on other policies where you disagree with him? Because there's a difference between those two things.
I think Piers his intuition is bad, and he comes out with what he believes is the right thing.
Right.
And then he adjusts that
Based on the feedback.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So I think, because remember, Piers was a tabloid journalist.
Yeah.
So I think he...
Wow, look at the way your nose turned up when you said tabloid.
Tabloid.
It's almost like someone going, oh, she's only got a master's.
Yeah, in photography. Ugh. Do you know what, just back on that comment, what's the sledge with the 2-year masters? All masters are 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I did it...
postgraduate degree. Like,
I did it full time.
Yeah.
So I did it quickly.
Yeah, terribly sorry about that.
Yeah, would you like me to be slower for you? Fuck. Anyway, so he's currently sparring with Megyn Kelly. I'm going to see if I can find it. Here we go. He's said, is MAGA becoming a bit thin-skinned, a bit sneering, a bit censorious, a bit, dare I suggest it, woke? Piers, this isn't going to win your mates, dude. But here we go.
But I mean, the woke right is a thing. We've talked about that before.
Yes. So I'm not going to play the whole episode, but they're basically sparring about Muslim extremists and a lot of London being taken over by Islam and then praying in the streets.
Yeah.
And Piers has come out saying, well, I live here and it's not happening. It's like, no, you live in a gated community out in the
the Cotswolds. Yeah.
You don't see it because you don't go to these places like Birmingham and all that.
Yeah.
So, I just find it really interesting that these people, these staples of old media still can't find their place, still can't find their footing.
Well, we need to segue from that to the recent protests we've seen in Sydney and the police response and everything else, because one of the features of that, which surprised me greatly, was when a group of Muslim men tried to kneel down in the street to pray.
I have that.
And New South Wales police intervened.
I have that.
Now, this is a mess. We need to talk about this because obviously protest was a big part of what we were about during COVID.
Do we want to introduce the topic properly? What are we talking about?
Okay. Well, what we're talking about is the visit by the Israeli Prime Minister Herzog. His first name escapes me. He's in Australia right now, trying to kind of build bridges and also
post-Bondi massacre.
Post-Bondi massacre, show support for the Jewish community here in the context of a post-Bondi Australia. But also, let's not forget, diplomatically things are strained because the Australian government has allowed celebrations of things like the October 7th, 2023 attack. They've allowed celebration of the killing of Jews to take place on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, out the front of the Sydney Opera House, etc. Now, what happened recently, and it was in the wake of, it was kind of spurred on by when the Pajama Party guys, the white fash, the NSN, did their little stand out the front of the New South Wales Parliament House, and the police kind of stood back during that, and there was a lot of backlash about that. Then we had the October 7th, and some people wanted to kind of celebrate and what have you. New South Wales rammed through new legislation allowing the police to prescribe areas as no-go zones for protests in the wake of a terror event.
Yeah.
And this was specifically aimed at trying to stop people from celebrating terror events and that sort of stuff. Which, who does that? Well, it's Muslims.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's name for me time when a street party broke out. It's
not all Muslims, but it's always a Muslim.
Yes, exactly. Name for me a time when a street party broke out in Australia celebrating a massacre and the people celebrating weren't Muslims. Find that for me. There isn't one.
Find me someone who wore a suicide vest and blew up through a terrorist attack that wasn't a Muslim.
I'm pretty sure it was a Baptist pastor. No, I'm misremembering. Sorry, he was handing out food to the homeless people. Sorry, it's easy to get those two things confused. So that's why these laws were brought in. Now, you and I talked about it at the time. Be careful what you wish for. There were people celebrating, saying, we need more laws to stop the NSN from standing out the front of Parliament House. The police should have gone in hard. And you and I are like, well, just be careful what you wish for.
Just to recap, my exact sentiments on that were I would rather them, because there was 12 and then it blew up to like 30.
Yeah.
Let them say their stupid thing and let us just ignore them.
Yeah,
that's
correct.
That's worse for their egos.
Correct.
Than all of this news coverage and new legislation and new laws. It makes them feel powerful because they know they're having an impact.
Correct. And I mean the media play into this so much.
The media is run by a pack of fucking idiots.
There are a dozen lost boys begging for your attention. Stop giving it to them.
But this is, I don't know, this is where I get really frustrated with politics in general. I know you're the policy guy and you pay attention to politics. I always take this sort of 30,000-foot view and I just go, this squabbling, this juvenile back and forth, this is high school behavior. Haven't you guys grown up? I know they haven't. I know the answer to that.
Please don't insult high school students like that.
No, it's so embarrassing to me. I'm like, these are grown-ass adults acting this way. And surely, amongst the media, amongst the journalists, amongst the left-wing people, you would know that the worst thing you do to someone who's behaving like that is give them attention. This is basics. This is 101 stuff. Human behavior.
But the media also know that if they lead with that story, because ultimately all
clicks.
Media, including the legacy media, the dinosaur media, the misinformation industrial complex, they want clicks. It's 100%. The same as everybody else. They are an eyeball farm. They sell eyeballs to advertisers. That's their business model.
On that, just a quick little segue, we're seeing that on our side of the fence as well. There's a lot of people, I've talked about this before, who are popping up, who are just doing the fear porn.
Yep.
And I have no time for it. I'm not going to name names because I'm grateful that there's more people speaking up, but there's doing it without any accountability or any responsibility, and it's really frustrating. Yeah. You guys would know who I'm talking about, but you see them, they post 3-4 times a day. It's just reactionary to the current news. Look at this. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. I'm like, and then what?
I post 3 or 4 times a day and I'm reacting to the news.
be a
Are you
bit...
talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Damn it, he finally got it.
Oh.
No.
I'm so hurt.
But you know the people, they're like, this is outrageous, like, we need to do this. But they never give a solution.
I get the temptation as well, because you can see the difference in the metrics. We talked earlier about, when I do a good news story, it tanks. The temptation is there. And for anyone that's, sitting there, unable to pay their bills, I can understand why you would sell out. I'm thankfully at the point where I am just about able to pay my bills.
Do you know what I think it is, though? I don't know. I see this a bit differently. I have a long-term view.
Yeah.
I'm in this for a long time, not a short, good time.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, you have to play this carefully. This is a marathon because you lose your credibility overnight.
Trust, once you burn trust, it's almost impossible to rebuild. Very, very difficult. So anyway, Herzog is in Australia, and protesters have decided they want to. I don't know. They think that Israel's going to change their policies or something based on them shouting something at a hotel window in downtown Sydney somewhere. I'm not quite sure exactly how the cause and effect sequence works in their mind, but they believe that if they get out on the streets and do a bunch of stuff, then that might help in some way.
Can I just say, this headline from the ABC, protesters were punched, pushed and arrested, but were New South Wales police actions excessive? Well, this is the same crowd who just, 4 months ago was over the Sydney Harbour Bridge with pictures of Khamenei, ISIS flags, wearing Hamas headbands. But let's just go back maybe 4 or 5 years ago in Victoria when they were shooting rubber bullets, and when they were pepper spraying old ladies, when they were dragging people around. Which one is it? Pick a freaking perspective on this.
Well, and this is the thing, because the very same people who championed and celebrated tougher protest laws were at that protest. There were, I think, at least 3 New South Wales MPs there at the time. Who got caught up in it. And now they're saying, we're so disillusioned, we're so hurt that a Labor government has brought in laws that are now being used in this way and the destruction of civil rights. I'm like, could you not see that coming?
Let's just recap quickly, because I know this is out of people's minds now. But here's some photos of the Melbourne protests. I mean, obviously you document this in Battleground Melbourne.
Sure, yeah.
But, it was disgusting. People were being kettled. People were being arrested for doing nothing other than just standing there. We had people on police horses. We had the Bearcat coming through the city. It was gruesome shit. And just to be clear, most of Melbourne cheered this on. Most of Melbourne were happy that the Victorian police were acting like the Gestapo.
And to be clear also, shop fronts weren't being smashed, flags weren't being burned. I was there and I documented, I live streamed non-stop, unedited, showing that the protesters were not targeting police.
The only time it got ugly was when it was out the front of the CFMEU headquarters. But that was a separate issue.
They were an entirely different thing. And I kind of wish I had been clearer about that when I made Battleground Melbourne, because it was just, it was a hard thing to kind of throw them under the bus. But ultimately, they came in there thinking that they suddenly owned the whole movement, when actually, for the most part, they were actually quite selfish because they didn't stand up. Now, some did. They were
working through most of COVID.
Many of them, the exceptions need to be acknowledged because I'm very grateful to them, but many of them happily worked all the way through and didn't give a rat's ass about the tyranny until all of a sudden it came down to their body and their medical choice, and suddenly they cared. It's the same reason why I'm a bit pissy with some of the police officers that stayed and did everything right up until the mandates came in.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that was the line when it actually affected you. For as long as it was cracking somebody else's head, that didn't bother you so much.
I just want to bring this back up because, I mean, we've talked about this before. This is just to set the scene, guys. So this is
awful.
Did this man end up passing away?
Not from his injuries.
Okay.
I believe he ended up taking his own life as a result of ongoing mental health. So let's be clear. This is a man who has a history of mental health before this incident, but he was engaged in conversation with police officers before this happened to him. There was nothing aggressive about him. He wasn't doing anything wrong apart from being where he was. This is Flinders Street Station. His only crime was that he was where he was. And tragically, he never really came back from this. And it was only in the last 2 years, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, it was in the last 2 years he passed away.
All right, so I'm just going to play this clip very quickly. Why have we got no sound? Sorry, guys.
And to the ground at Flinders Street Station has fronted court to face serious charges. Witnesses say the man, who claims to suffer brain damage and PTSD, was abusing officers before the incident. Mimi Becker was in court.
A swift sling tackle sends 28-year-old
Head
Daniel
first.
Peterson English straight to
Arms
the ground.
pinned. Head first. arms pinned by the
Sergeant
officer.
Bo Barrett is facing 3 charges:
That's
recklessly
honestly
causing injury,
attempted
unlawful
murder.
and common law assault.
So just think about this quickly. I don't want to keep playing COVID stuff. If you king hit someone, you're up on charges. If that person dies, it can be manslaughter or murder.
They brought in a curfew at King's Cross because of 2 king hit attacks that had happened there.
What is the difference between a king hit with a fist and body slamming someone to the ground that cannot prevent themselves from their head hitting the pavement?
But the difference is that's worse.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a police officer doing it. So if you're going to, I'm sorry, like I'm getting really heated. I'm going to try and rein it in. If you're going to sit here and tell me that the police actions were excessive at this protest, but you were fucking silent about what happened in lockdown, sit down.
Now,
you don't get a damn say in this.
You and I were not silent about lockdowns, and so we can comment on this. Now, I haven't watched the footage in detail, but it seems evident to me that like almost all of these protests, overwhelmingly the majority of people there are not there to have a fight with police, but there's a minority of people there who are there to have a fight with police.
I actually disagree with you. Sorry, I need to disagree with you on this. These people, you got to think about this, and this is what people are failing to understand, in my view. These people have been indoctrinated for years, since like 2020 for most of these people. Palestine is the current thing, but this started with all the BLM stuff.
But indoctrinated and here to have a fight are 2 different things.
No, hear me out. Over 5 years, they have had this ideology that's been forced down their throat, and it has incited in them this rage, this burning idea that it's them against the world, that anyone that's not standing beside them at a protest is the enemy. And whether you're a white man on the other side or you're an Aboriginal man on the other side, it doesn't matter to them. The police aren't standing with them. The police were actually, in this particular protest, were trying to stop them. Therefore, enemy. These people are zealots. They don't think.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing that those people exist. Do you have the video of the moment when the police charged? Because this will illustrate my point.
Do you mean the praying one?
No. When the police charged at the protesters in the main street.
Give me 2 seconds. Okay. I'll get that.
So we have this moment where the police were given the order to. Yep, here we go.
Okay, so I think this is.
Yeah, that's the one. Can you blow that up?
Yeah.
All right. So go back to the start of it. Can we just turn the sound off because that's just chaos?
Yeah.
Stop there. Freeze on that frame. Don't start it again. Count heads. You'll struggle to get to 50 people.
Yeah.
Now, there were a couple of thousand people involved. Where are the rest? Well, they're not the fuckheads who want to have a fight with the police. This is my point. This was true of COVID protests. This is true of these protests. Let's not lump everyone into the same exact basket, because at that point, you lose the ability to talk to them. So there were 50, maybe 80 fuckheads who wanted to have an actual fight with the police.
Yeah.
There were, in addition to that, many hundreds, if not a small number of thousands of other people who support the cause, but they were not there for this.
They're staying out of trouble.
Right.
This is the same, pardon me, the protests that were in Melbourne a few months ago where they were throwing rocks and stuff at the police.
Yeah. And what happened, so I know this from the COVID protests, we occasionally had issues where people would try and bring
you've got
projectiles.
antagonists in there.
They'd bring projectiles, and some of them I actually believe I saw a plant on one occasion when I was on Queen Street trying to dodge the Bearcat. And 2 homeless people were having a fight, and a guy dressed in full tradie outfits heading towards the CFMEU, hoofing it. He's a really tall, skinny guy, absolutely hoofing it towards the CFMEU. And I was live streaming at the time, but I didn't quite catch it, but I did talk about it right then on the live stream. This guy comes up to the 2 fighting homeless people, and I'm sure he said, "Look at this, like shut up and go your separate ways, blah, blah, blah." And then put that thing, like folded it and put it back in his pocket. It had all the hallmarks of a badge inside and I'm like, but you're dressed like a tradie. You're on your way to the CFMEU building, lead footing it out there. Like what? Hang on.
I'm not shocked by that at all.
So I'm dead certain that there were agent provocateurs. However, there were also idiots and people who want to have a fight, people who have their own agendas and issues. But they will use the crowd of people who wouldn't be violent to then hide
also,
behind. And
there's the power of the crowd. Like people, when you're there, you get whipped up into a frenzy.
Yeah.
And you see this a lot, and then when it all sort of dissipates and everyone calms down, there's footage I'll pull up in a second of a guy, and it's the same thing with the ICE protests in Minneapolis. You see it from one view and it looks worse than it is, and then you see the proof after that story's already gone viral and everyone's already whipped up in a frenzy. This man bit a chunk out of a police officer's hand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're dealing with animals.
Yeah. So the issue here is I'm absolute on the right to protest. The right to protest is sacred. It must not be infringed. But we have to protect the definition of protest. Because people say, well, if I have the right to protest, then I can stand wherever I want and you can't tell me not to. Well, no. You have the right to protest on the footpath over there where people are supposed to stand. That's the standy bit. This is the drivey bit. You protest on the standy bit. If there's so many of you that you no longer fit on the standy bit, at that point you can encroach on the road. I think that's legitimate at that point. But if you've got a handful of people trying to start fights with police, antisocial behaviour, violent behaviour, committing actual crimes, well, I'm sorry, you're going to get a police response at that point.
I think this is again where I get lost with the policy side. I understand what you're saying and I agree with you. I do think that is a sacred human right. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I would argue this is kind of the same thing with the whole Nayib Bukele, grabbing everyone.
Sure.
When it gets to this point, like I am pro-protest. I was there at all the lockdown protests, but those were protests once every few months during a lockdown. These are protests every weekend in the CBD, so much so that our city in Melbourne, and I know it's happening in other cities, but we're being held to ransom. People can't trade, people don't go into the city. It's affecting the economic viability of the CBD. I would argue, sure, protest your heart out.
Yeah.
But this is no longer a protest, and these are organised. They have got people behind them who have got...
It's a professional operation.
Yeah, so is this still a protest? I would argue it's beyond that now, and there has to be, and you guys are going to come for me for saying this, there has to be a point where you go, enough. Because now in this protest, you've got so many different things all coming together. You've got the Aboriginal anti-Australia mob. You've got the pro-Islam mob in there. You've got white liberals who have a bleeding heart. We'll get onto Grace Tame in a second. So you have this weird mix of people who are all there for their own reasons, but they're using the power of the mob to push their agenda forward. And of course in here you've got trans and gays for Palestine. You've got the LGBT furries.
So protest needs to be separated from not protest. We've mentioned that already. But context also matters and positioning also matters. They're in public space. And so what this New South Wales law has said is we're going to prescribe sections of public space where you're not allowed to protest in the aftermath of a terror attack because we don't want these sorts of scenes. You still have the right to protest, just not in these areas. Well, public space is owned by the public. It's funded by the public. It's maintained by public money that's taken from us. And so it is for public use. But for which public use? Roads are for driving on, footpaths are for walking on. Why? Well, because that's how they've been designated. That's how it's come to be socially accepted. You don't drive on the footpath, and if you're walking on the road and there's a car coming, get out of the car's way. And if you don't, you're the one that's now causing a problem. So I had this conversation with a lawyer who was representing actually some protesters, the protesters that were against the arms show in Melbourne that happened during COVID. They had their protests, blah, blah, blah. So some of them were rat bags, got themselves into trouble, and this lawyer was representing them. And she wanted to have a chat with me about sort of the case and my views on that side of things. And I made the point that if you have 10,000 people and you end up blocking a road, well, this is a publicly funded road for the use of the public. So if you have 10,000 members of the public who help to fund that road and they think that the correct use right now is as a protest, well, you've probably got a point. You're inconveniencing a couple of hundred cars. They're members of the public, but you have 10,000 members of the public, right? So at some point you go, okay, this is the public use of this public space. But if you've got 4 protesters gluing themselves to a road to hold up hundreds of cars, that's not an acceptable public use. This is a very small number of members of the public who are now artificially, unnecessarily depriving the public of the use of this public space. So that's the framework to which I kind of work. Protest is sacred and must be protected. But the minute you start abusing and misusing public space and then negatively affecting other people's use of that public space to a disproportionate degree, right? If you gather in a park, 50 people because you want to do a protest about X, Y, or Z, and you're chanting your chants and holding your slogans, I think that's completely fine. Those same 50 people on a busy intersection blocking the Nepean Highway, not acceptable. That's not what that piece of public space is for. So, coming to the point at hand, the repeated protests, the impact on shopkeepers, all that stuff. I think there is an argument to say that the government should not be allowed to say, hold up, guys, you've had enough protests now, you need to stop. I think that's inappropriate. But I think the ability to be able to say, guys, pick a different piece of turf. You've hammered these shopkeepers. You've hammered these streets. This is no longer an appropriate thing. Go into the park at Treasury Gardens, right? When I've been involved in March for Life protests around abortion rights, etc., or anti-abortion in Victoria, and we'll gather in the Treasury Gardens and we'll march up out the front of Parliament House, and then we will have prearranged with police to have a half an hour on the road blocking that intersection. And until we get the go ahead, everyone stays on the footpath, all crammed in, and then we get the go ahead and we can all use that intersection. And then half an hour later, everyone walks out, and that's that. It's orderly, it's coordinated, and it's minimising the negative impact on other users of public space.
You've got, like, I hate to say it, but the right doesn't behave like animals.
No, correct. So this is what I'm saying. People that are like, oh, the police have cracked down on their right to protest. No, they didn't. They didn't infringe on their right to protest. There were thousands of other people with them that successfully protested and went home without having a fight with the police. Their right to protest was not infringed. Their right to cause physical injury, to assault people, and to unjustifiably occupy public space for a purpose for which it is not maintained, i.e. using a road as a place to walk when there were only a handful of them. They could have all been on the footpath, no problem. That's what got them into a confrontation with police.
I would argue, though, like, if there's no inaction, I'm not saying the government, but because there has been no action on this over 2 years now, we ended up with Bondi.
Yeah.
I've talked about this repeatedly on the podcast, but at what point when things start to happen, like we've now got people biting police officers and people are resentful. People who aren't involved in the Palestine movement are resentful of these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually no longer helping their cause. It's actually making people want to abandon their cause. What is the potential fallout? So we get to a point where the general public start having punch-ons with these protesters, start taking, like,
I'm not against it.
Well, yeah. So I'm going to contrast this to the Just Stop Oil people and the people who glue their hands to the roads or throw super to Van Gogh.
Yeah.
People had a gut full of this. People are done with this. And so what you're seeing is people will drive over these protesters. They don't care.
Yeah.
People will grab them and drag them across the road.
Yep.
And it's like,
in Germany, they were chipping out the asphalt and then just letting them go.
Yeah.
With asphalt glued to their hand, like, your problem now, buddy. Or
100%.
locking them in prison with the asphalt glued to them. Hey, we didn't do that.
Yeah, and it's like, I understand why people are doing that. I don't advocate for people to be vigilantes, but I understand why it happens.
So, but this is a logical extension. We've talked about shame before, bringing back shame, bringing back sort of that cultural sanction. 100%. We saw during the early industrialist era, particularly during sort of 1910s through the 1940s America, we saw, in some cases, literal wars between the unionists and the union breakers, right? Ugly scenes. And, people died.
Yeah.
People died in kind of this low-grade industrial union war that lasted for a couple of decades. It had a couple of particularly big incidents within it. Yes, I think that is an acceptable way under some circumstances to sort this out.
Do you think what actually this all boils down to is just we need to sort it out in the schoolyard? A couple of
100%
fists to the face?
And if these people had gotten into more fights at school, they'd be doing a lot less ratbag behaviour now.
Yeah, there's
right?
an argument for that.
The teachers, the principals, the nannies, the busybodies, the bleeding hearts that have wrapped kids in cotton wool are largely responsible for the kind of ratbag behaviour we see now. There are many people that passionately believe and support what these people are protesting about, but they would never lower themselves to that kind of ratbag behaviour. They will find other ways to support, other ways to express it. They would participate in peaceful protests and marches. They'll participate in boycotts and letter writing campaigns. They'll do all of those orderly things because they would never lower themselves.
It does seem really interesting how perfectly coordinated this is across the world, though.
Oh,
like
yeah.
we were caught up in the big Palestine
in London.
march in London.
Yep.
That was
they had all the signs already.
2023.
Yep.
And I think that there's a little bit more to this than that. I think there's
funding. There's a lot of money behind it.
But let's look at this particular story because this is one that's getting a lot of attention. So a protester has allegedly bitten a police officer during an arrest. And there was a photo I saw circulating and now I can't find it, so I don't know if it was accurate. I'm just going to play this. It's from the Sydney Morning Herald, if it will play. Where's the sound?
Yeah. I mean, it certainly moves his head in a way that would be consistent with that. And he's clearly resisting arrest. He's now getting pummeled for it.
Yeah. So, again, you can hear the crowd. They're getting whipped up into a frenzy.
You monster, blah, blah, blah.
They're looking at this.
Like police brutality,
What do you want these people to do? What do you want? I know what they want. They want free reign. They just want to be able to cause chaos, throw rocks at glass and shatter everything and graffiti everything and get their way. But we allow this. And I get what you're saying. I understand this. And I don't pretend to have the answers here. But they are tearing down statues. They're graffitiing things. We've seen the Bondi Massacre. Like, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. Nothing's happening. At what point... What action happens to stop this or curb this?
I don't think it's getting worse. Look at the size of that crowd. That's a nothing crowd.
No, I don't mean the crowd. I mean what's happening because of it. Yeah.
So I'm an individualist, as you know. So my question here is, what did that individual do individually to get arrested in the first place? And what was that individual doing at that point in time for the police to respond that way? There are scenarios where it's entirely justifiable for someone who's at a protest to be arrested because they exceed protest behavior. They go into criminal behavior, vandalism, destruction, assault, whatever it may be. I don't know the particulars of his case. There are situations where it's reasonable for police to have to escalate their use of force during an arrest because someone is resisting arrest, someone is trying to assault them while they're being arrested, etc. Now, again, I'm not commenting specifically on that case. I assume that's going to end up before the courts and that'll have to get sorted out there. But people are going to call me a hypocrite for saying, yeah, there are circumstances at arrests where people need to be arrested. They're going to say, oh, well, you never said that during COVID. No. During COVID, we actively pushed out of the crowd people who threw projectiles at cops. When someone starts rummaging through a backpack on the ground near the front line, a couple of rows back on the front line, guys would grab them with their backpack and turf them towards the cops and be like, take this one. We don't want him. He's probably one of yours anyway, but even if he's not, we don't want him. And so we had a standard. Now, that was not always enforced. There were people who did the wrong thing. Absolutely. I caught on camera someone threw a bollard at two mounted police. And I saw red. I went off at them. I dropped a bunch of F-bombs and got in their face, and they scurried away like a couple of cockroaches. So we weren't able to stop every single act by every single person.
So I just want to show you... Sorry.
The important thing is we were actively working against the people that crossed out of protest into criminality.
Oh, sorry.
That's why the police reactions against the body of people who were not being criminal was wrong in the case of COVID because we hadn't crossed that line. We were within the bounds of reasonable protest.
I hear what you're saying, but I just want to show you this clip. So, I mean, there's so many clips. I could show you clips all day. This is in Melbourne. Obviously, it's always in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And you have the same people. This is the mob. And this is what happens when you allow the mob to have as much power as they've had.
Yeah.
And he's burning an Israel flag and an Australian flag, of course. And then literally, you watch it. He lights a flag and then he puts it on top of the tram announcement screen. So, like, this is damaging public property.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Why aren't they arrested? Why isn't something happening? Nothing ever happens. Nothing happened in Sydney. We have Bondi. Still nothing happens. Still these people are protesting. At some point, there has to be a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
What is that point?
Well, we don't know that these people haven't been arrested or won't be arrested.
Of course they haven't. It's Melbourne. Come on.
Well, okay.
We can't even arrest people that we know are stealing cars actively.
Sure. But I would say that's a very clear case where those individuals have crossed out of protest. They're into arson, vandalism, damaging public property.
But this keeps happening.
So those individuals need to be held accountable. This is my point.
And my point is they're not.
Okay. So then we're at an impasse. I can't control what they do. The solution is individual accountability. It always is. That's whether it's immigrant crime, whether it's protesters, doing stupid stuff, whether it's white collar crime, whether it's Epstein. Individual accountability. That is the answer. Criminalising groups is never the answer. In the same way that criminalising NSN is not an answer to those ratbags, criminalising the Palestine supporters as a group is also not the answer. You have to tackle the individuals.
I think the group, the fact that we have all these different factions in there together is actually why they become powerful. That's what I was trying to say before. Like, you have the Indigenous rights camp, you have the this We Hate Australian colonisation group, the LGBTs, the trans. So what's happened is, and I saw it, I'm going to have to try and find it. That's what I've been Googling. There was an Aboriginal man who came out and said, we don't want to stand with Palestine. You guys are making our cause lose favour because people are conflating us together.
Yeah.
I'll try and find it in a second, but I thought it was worth talking about what ABC says, all right? Because ABC was all pro the police and the Bearcat and the riot squad in Melbourne.
Yeah, during COVID.
So their headline for those who are listening is protesters... Sorry, I'll bring it back on the screen. protesters were punched, pushed and arrested, but were New South Wales police actions excessive? And they go on to say that when does the force by police become excessive? It's a question being asked by some after footage of protesters being punched, pushed and arrested in Sydney CBD during a rally against Israeli President Isaac Herzog's visit on Monday. The New South Wales Premier has pushed back against claims by protesters that officers used excessive force. But as people watch videos of the protesters being punched by police, ABC News Verify asked 4 experts what the red line existed between reasonable and excessive. When we see force, it's still shocking, said Justin Ellis, a senior lecturer in criminology at University of Newcastle. We don't have all the facts, but it's still distressing to watch. And then they go on to say, if you're police, you will see the use of force as justified. If you're a protester, you will see the force used by the police as unjustified. There are guidelines outlined in the New South Wales Police Use of Force Manual, which was released by the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission in 2023. It summarises that force should be reasonably necessary, appropriate to the circumstances, and where possible, you should attempt to de-escalate a situation. That is all so vague.
But it kind of has to be. I mean, how do you, if you create a letter of the law version, force is not justified until they do exactly this specific thing.
Oh, I agree with you.
Just avoid that exact specific thing and do everything else.
I agree with you. So we're at an impasse because I would say it's justified and they'll say it wasn't justified. And this argues actually lighting up our side of the fence too, because people are now coming out saying, no, the police were too hard, protesting is a human right and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, guys, you can't have it both ways. Pick a lane. Yeah. You have to.
You can't. And my lane is very, very clear. Every individual needs to be judged by their individual actions. Where an individual becomes a criminal, fuck them. When they're not, then they are exercising their sacred right to protest.
All right, let's move across to the next story. Grace Tame, Australian of the Year. Yeah, screaming, globalise the Intifada, which we've now had discussions about post-Bondi, that this is...
criminalising that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I... Oh, gosh.
Do you want to play? Let me play the clip. I've got it here. She's so... Anyway.
What a backwards world is it when a so-called democracy silences and surveils academic research, art, music and sport?
Give us some specific examples, please.
And yet it profits off, it funds genocide. Shame.
Pause.
A so-called...
Surveils, well, the government surveils everybody. How exactly, like, she's literally standing with a microphone in front of a crowd of thousands of people, quite clearly free to say whatever it is that she's going to say. So, punishes peaceful protesters. Well, no, it didn't punish the peaceful ones. It punished the violent ones at the very end who stuck around for a fight with the police.
But this is before all that.
Yeah, no, I know. But this, my point is, like, she's so obviously wrong. But secondly, can she draw the dots and tell me how the Australian democracy, so-called democracy, is profiting from genocide? I know they argue that what's happening in Israel is genocide. She says profiting from genocide. How
because
exactly?
We're selling weapons to Israel.
Well, except that we're also, like, we've been sending aid and so forth. I would suggest that we're at a net negative. So she could argue either that we're profiting from it or that we're funding it, but not both.
I would say that all of the damage being done by the protests are actually a negative because the taxpayer is copping the bills for those. So
sure. But yes, obviously the crowd lapped it up.
Oh, of course they did. But this is what I mean about whipping people into a frenzy. And I guarantee nothing will happen to Grace Tame. Nothing will happen. She's untouchable. She was Australian of the Year. She's a darling of the woke left. Nothing will happen, even though we had this whole big fucking kerfuffle after Bondi that we need to do something. And now we're going to spend $131 million on a royal commission. Let me tell you guys, I'll save you $130 million. Just give me $1 million for this. This is why Bondi happens, because you do nothing. Every time this shit happens, you do nothing.
But then let's be specific. Let's say we agree that the government should do something and you're that government. What's the something?
Well, isn't this incitement? Isn't this what you were arrested for? Globalise the Intifada is literally a call to violence.
I agree. It is. I agree. It is a literal call to violence.
And she's like, and this is the thing, when you talk about incitement, you have to look at the behaviour here, whether or not someone's saying something explicitly or is doing it subconsciously. She is whipping this crowd up into a frenzy, and then we saw what happened in Sydney. So she's actually responsible for doing this. So so here's the thing, right? You talk about the actions of the individuals. Yes, but when it's a company doing something, the entity itself is also punished. The organizers should be punished. This happened under your leadership. You were the one that was there organizing this. I'm sorry, that's what happens when you're an adult. When you're in charge of an organization, when you're in charge of a group, this falls at your feet.
At that point, the minute I'm the government and a protest movement, a social movement is gathering momentum, I send in a bunch of rat bags to start a big fight, arrest the organizers, and you do the operation.
Yeah, but sure. Okay, but you're being cynical.
But this is like,
I get it.
You have to be cynical. You have to be very, very watchful. Every time you give the government a little bit more power to fix a problem,
I'm not saying the government. I'm saying I'm not saying that we need new laws or new legislation. I'm saying the police and the Justice Department or whoever, someone needs to lay charges. And I'm not saying throw them in jail either, by the way. I'm saying punish them, or shame them. Stripping her of her Australian of the Year award would be the worst thing that happened to her.
I think at a minimum that, the fact that it was given to her is a travesty, but I think at a minimum stripping her of that would be perfectly
Can I just,
fine.
sorry, I'm gonna go on a rant. So I have
Sorry, what was the last 10 minutes?
That was just me getting warmed up. me.
Sorry, okay, we're going to solo camera here. Solo camera
here. Okay, so Grace, we wonder why we're in this shitty world where everyone's depressed, anxious, ADHD, autism, everyone's a victim, because you put people like that up on a pedestal. I'm not denying that she was sexually assaulted and what she went through is terrible, but all of her behavior since is not justified by what happened to her. She is a petulant child. She is an agitator. She is someone who thrives off being someone who goes in there and starts trouble. She's here at a protest. She's saying globalize the intifada. She's whipping a crowd up into a frenzy, and then the police have to go in and then get bitten on the hand by a horrible protester. Nothing happens. The reason we have such a delinquent youth is because we pedestal people like that. At a bare minimum, her title should be stripped as a consequence for just being an idiot. Sorry.
I've had a revelation.
What? That my blood pressure's high?
Her pronouns are Greta Thunberg.
Oh,
she's Australia's Greta Thunberg.
You're behind the eight ball. We've been saying
I
this for a while.
thought I was being clever. There you go.
But this is you want to see why things get to this point. I'm going to say it. Ready? Drinking game. This is exactly what I'm speaking about when I talk about chicken in the noodle aisle.
Cheers, everybody.
The seed started with Grace Tame years ago, and she got given the Australian of the Year award, right? And then from then on, she has been platformed by all these woke organizations. She went the podcast route. She's been on the cover of magazines as a poster child of a young woman who's doing the right thing. Okay, she's a sexual assault survivor. I'm not going to deny her that. I'm certainly not going to say that she didn't do something good there.
Yep.
Great, credit where credit's due. But your behavior, the way you show up, your petulant attitude when you're accepting your award and you're standing next to the Prime Minister, no one said you had to like him. Just show a little bit of decorum and respect for the country that gave you that award that you now leverage, by the way. You use that to platform yourself and make yourself more important as a public figure. The only reason you have that is because we were gracious enough to give it to you and you spat in the face of the Australian public.
The thing she should have done is refuse to accept it, because she refuses to accept an award that's being handed out by a colonising power that is guilty of genocide against the Aboriginal people. I mean, what a hypocrite.
Let's play the rest of the video because my blood pressure is rising.
This is going to lower your blood pressure?
Yeah.
Democracy that punishes peaceful protesters like us, but welcomes a war criminal with open arms.
I'm sorry. Has he been on trial? Have we had some kind of charges laid? I mean, that sounds to me like that's a bit of a sledge, honey.
They've decided that he's guilty, and that's good enough.
Yeah. Like I said, whipping people up into a frenzy. Can I just say, I love that she's got the hair and the makeup done. This is professional hair and makeup, by the way. She didn't do that herself. Because why? Why did she get her hair professionally done and her makeup done? This is great for the resume, guys.
Oh, yeah.
This is great for the media kit. This goes in the sponsorship document.
Yes, a man who signed his name on bombs that were used to kill women and men and children.
You mean the men, women and children who want to eradicate the Jews, the ones who salivate at any opportunity to go and kill the Jews? Okay, cool.
A man who also said, and I quote, "There are no innocent civilians in Gaza." That is incitement to genocide. It is advocating collective punishment, and most of all, it is a fucking lie.
Says who? Who made you the arbiter of truth?
Well, sure, but I mean, we're sitting here being the arbiter of truth as well, and on her speech, the statement "there are no innocent civilians in Gaza" is completely factually incorrect.
He didn't say that, or he said that?
No, I don't know whether he said that,
okay.
but that statement is factually incorrect.
Yeah.
So she's not wrong on that point. But it's interesting that she's calling out an incitement to genocide, and that's interesting knowing what she's going to be doing shortly.
But that is all the right-wing fascist state of Israel has left now. Lies, bombs, and bloodlust.
Now, she was careful to say state of Israel. That's interesting.
Still supporting them because we are...
Again, why is the Aboriginal flag there? Someone explain this to me. What's this got to do with Aboriginal rights?
Yeah.
A spineless colony of the United States, and we depend on their military might.
Okay, Grace, go volunteer.
Yep.
Go join the army, join the navy.
Notice how none of these people have made any effort to actually go do humanitarian movements, be part of it.
So this was one of the things that I thought was hilarious. Just pause. When we were in London, was they do this chant, such and such a place will be free. This place will be free. There was a chant that they would do about the return. We will return, and they would name these different places. And what they were talking about was, they were naming places in Israel, and they're saying, "This will reclaim this, will reclaim that." I'm like, get on a plane, guys.
Yeah.
Get on a plane.
What's stopping you?
That's you can go back to that part of the world anytime you want.
It's the only reason. Our political classes across the spectrum have made it clear
I'm trying to pause when I see an Iranian regime flag. There's many of them.
that they only care about two things: getting elected and people with money who can engineer that outcome. The Israel lobby has been working overtime to cement themselves as one of the most influential political donors.
As opposed to Qatar?
Well, what's interesting is I'm noticing she's being very careful not to say the word Jews.
Oh, yeah.
She's being very careful to the state of Israel, Israel lobby, because...
Oh, this speech was put through a lawyer and everything.
Yeah.
Until the last bit where she gets a bit too worked up.
Well, I say let them, because you can buy bombs and you can buy politicians, but you cannot buy the truth.
Truth is decided by those who are victorious.
You cannot buy our compassion and you cannot buy our love. That is what we have. Those are our weapons, our collective communal weapons, and we will keep fighting with those until the very end.
We have very different definitions of love.
Of compassion and love. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. If that's your version of compassion, I feel sorry for everyone else in your life.
Explains why she's single. Or is she single? I don't
know.
But I needn't remind you here of any of this. We don't need convincing. I'm preaching to the choir. There are still so many people, good people, who are scared to speak and scared to act. So what I want you to do after you leave here today is look around you, amongst your colleagues, amongst your friends and your family, and find as many people as you can who have not come to a protest and bring them along next time, because we need them. We need everybody. We have to continue to mobilise and we have to continue to globalise. Say it with me, from Gadigal to Gaza. Globalise the Intifada. One more time. From Gadigal to Gaza. Globalise the Intifada. Thank you.
All right, there's a lot going on there. Now, I'm going to put aside the globalised intifada thing for a moment here. Outside of that, everything that I just saw is absolutely protected protest. Absolutely protected. Everything we saw in that video, I think she's absolutely wrong. I think her worldview is messed up. I think she's a closet Jew hater. I don't think that distinction between the state of Israel and Jews actually exists. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think that they say this because it's politically correct, because
they're trying to stop themselves getting in trouble.
Well, they're trying to stop themselves sounding like the Nazis. Because let's be honest, there's not a lot of difference.
No,
right?
Not at this point.
So they say state of Israel instead of the Jews. And they think that sort of separates them.
The irony is lost on them. They talk about fascism, I'm like, as opposed to what you're doing right now.
But everything, so I think they're completely wrong. I think they're reprehensible. I do not align with their worldview whatsoever, but I will absolutely go into bat for their right to do what we saw in that video. Have speeches, have chants, have drums, have flags, get a crowd, occupy the streets. If you've got a crowd so big that it can't fit on the footpaths, well, then public use of the roads for the purpose of protected protest. I've got no problem with any of that. Now, the Globalize the Intifada particular line, well, this is where it gets really tricky. I did a video on where do you cross the line with words into incitement, because we would agree if I was a mob boss and I gave the order for my underling to go and whack somebody, well, I only used words. You can't prosecute me for my words. Well, no, actually, you gave an order.
That's what what's his name, Goering did during the Nuremberg trials.
I didn't actually do anything.
It wasn't me.
That's right. And so there is a point, we all accept that there is a point where words do cross a threshold and you can be held accountable for them. Even free speech absolutists ultimately agree. If you're giving orders and you have a reasonable expectation that someone's going to act on that in order to hurt somebody, then you've crossed a line here. So how do we discern what that line is? The best analogy I can give you is this. If you're walking across a street and no car has to slow down, swerve, do anything, well, you've harmed nobody. Okay, there's been the interaction of your rights is zero. You haven't affected anyone else's rights. If you walk across the street, stop in the middle of the road, and a car has to stop in order to not hit you, well, you've now infringed on their right to use that road. You're both in the same space. It's a public space. You both have the right to be there, but now you're beginning to affect each other's rights to be there. Okay, so if I walk across in front of a car recklessly, that car swerves and damages itself on the gutter, right? And then they say you have to pay for that. Well, I didn't make you swerve. You're the one that chose to swerve, right? You can't charge me for that. Well, hang on. I swerved in reaction to what you were doing. So then you go one step further and then we'll come back to speech. What if I walk out on the road, a car's coming, recklessly in front of a car, and then at the last second I jump out of the way?
Yeah. So
actually they never needed to swerve. They could have kept driving. Wouldn't have been a problem. And then they hit the gutter, of course, because they do swerve. And I'm like, well, you didn't even have to swerve. Listen, I wasn't going to still be there when you came driving through. How ridiculous. Well, they couldn't know that. They had to take me at my word. They had to look at where I was and what I was doing and go, well, that looks like I'm about to have a collision, and react accordingly. So this is where we bring it back to words. When you create a situation where a reasonable person has to swerve, where a reasonable person sees a collision, where a reasonable person says, I think I'm going to get hurt here, you've crossed that line.
Yeah.
Right? That's the point. And you can't then go, oh, well, I was never going to act on that. I was going to jump out of the way at the last second. No, that doesn't work that way. Once you've created the reasonable expectation that, hey, this is real. I have to start taking extra precautions for my personal safety. I need to be much more aware of my surroundings when I walk down to the synagogue. I need to avoid that particular area. When you start to do that, you are now infringing on the rights of others. And so, and I say this as a free speech absolutist, and people go, oh, well, then you're not a free speech absolutist. No. I recognize that free speech isn't the only human right. Okay, and there are situations where human rights interact with each other, and we have to figure out how does that actually work. So the question is, and I don't have a definitive answer on this, is Globalize the Intifada a call to violence such that it should cause a reasonable Jewish person to think, hang on, I need to be more aware of my surroundings.
The Intifada, there's been, a couple of them now, and they always end with terrorism. That's
they
what it is.
Start with terrorism, that's what they are, yes.
And so a call to globalise the Intifada is calling for a globalisation of a terror effort to get the outcome they want, which is not only a Palestinian state, but it is a global, caliphate.
Yeah, global caliphate, and a purging, specifically a purging of the Jews.
This is what they want. They want a global caliphate. They want everyone to be a Muslim, and they want to eradicate the Jews.
But Grace Tame would say, well, I don't want a global caliphate. I don't want everyone to be Muslim. She's leading that chant.
She's a useful idiot.
I agree, but she would sit there and say, you're wrong because I don't want a global caliphate.
But okay, I understand you, and I agree with you on principle. Like when you put that all on paper in front of me, I totally agree with you. But where this gets messy, and you just have to look back to what happened in the 1930s, how Hitler got, elected. Whoops!
The rumor has it he had trouble with that, but anyway,
I did hear that. Maybe it's all the myth.
Yeah, maybe.
And how he came to power, and then also how he systematically broke down the German people's respect for their Jewish neighbors who they had lived in harmony with.
Yeah.
And this all started from exactly that. I'm just asking this. I'm only saying that. We know what you fucking mean. We know exactly what you're trying to do. And it's exactly the same effort. I'm not trying to say that Grace Tame is a Nazi. But what she wants is the Jewish people to be scared because it suits her outcome. Her outcome that she wants is a Palestinian state, and she wants Israel to be disbanded. She doesn't want the state of Israel. That is clear. And whether or not you believe in Israel or Jews or whatever, I've said this before. I'm indifferent to this. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Palestinian. And quite frankly, I want my country back and the problems of my country to be at the forefront of everyone's mind.
If you're going to protest about something happening.
Right? Like, that's what I want. But since this is now in the public sphere and it's all that people want to talk about, the way I look at this is this. Over history, over time, the Jews are always the ones that have been forced to give up something to move, and then they moved to where they were because you had to push them out of Germany thanks to Hitler.
Yeah.
Now they're in Israel, which arguably, if you've read the Bible, that is where they are from.
Yep.
That's where Moses led them back to after the parting of the Red Sea.
Yep.
And of course, none of you fucking know this because you're all secular. None of you guys know your Bible. And you're going to argue that because a definitive date in your mind, what was it, 1948, the British colony decided that you could go, that the Jews could have parts of Israel back, and you've decided that that's the definitive date. Okay, so then I'm going to argue with you. Let's go further back in history. Let's go and look at the mosque that was built on top of a Jewish synagogue.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the fucking Bible. Like... The point where I get really frustrated with this is we can sit here and have beautiful legislation on paper. We can sit here and have all of our human rights and it's written all immaculately and it all makes sense. But the reality is human life is messy. All of this is a fucking mess. And you can't solve it by going, all right, we're going to get the white gloves on and make it perfect. There is no perfect outcome. Someone like Grace Tame, whether or not she says the words, I hate Jews, her actions show she hates them. She doesn't want the Israel Prime Minister here. She said this explicitly. She doesn't want the Australian government to have a partnership with the Jews, the Jewish state of Israel. She doesn't want us sending weapons over to Israel. She doesn't want us aligned with the US in our relationship with Israel. What she is saying is that she doesn't want a Jewish state. Now, she might not explicitly say the word Jew, but I think we can all derive the meaning from what she's saying. All right, great. That is incitement. That is you calling for a persecution of a race of people, which, by the way, you've just spent the last fucking 4 or 5 years telling us that we're racist. You are a racist. You are exactly like the NSN. And if we're going to hold the NSN accountable because they're doing protests and the Nazi symbol and all that bullshit, then I would argue that this globalize the intifada, the kafir, the Palestinian flag also gets banned because you can't have one without the other. I'm not saying that you should ban the Nazi symbol either because all it does is exacerbate the issue. But if you're going to ban one side, you ban the other. Pick one.
Yeah, and I would say don't ban either side. I think that's the correct approach in a liberal democracy that supposedly values freedom of speech. But yeah, so the question for me, in that video that we saw, I've got no problem with anything until we get to the globalize the intifada chant. And at that point, the question is, has this crossed the threshold into a genuine incitement of violence? Would it be reasonable for someone to respond? In your opinion, yes. I think that would be a debatable point in court, maybe. But hang
on, sorry, can I push back on that?
Sure.
Globalize the intifada and from the river to the sea are calls to the eradication of Jews. That's exactly what they mean.
That is their origin. That is what they mean. But we'd be better off if all the fucking politicians were dead. Isn't an incitement to
but that's like, how is that any different to me doing, like, I'm not going to do it on the podcast, but like saying Sieg Heil and putting my hand up. Oh, I didn't mean it how Hitler did it. I was doing it like as a different way.
I understand. But this would be argued in court. What my point is, it's very, very clear to me that we are pushing right up against the point where there is an argument to be had, right? At a minimum, we're at the point where they're standing there in the streets.
Now, aren't we?
Well, correct. But they're standing in the streets saying things that it is highly debatable that yes, that could be very reasonable for someone to view that as a threat against them. For a Jewish person, for someone who wants to walk down the streets in Caulfield or in parts of Sydney or whatever.
Does this change your mind, though, given that we just had the Bondi massacre? Because... sorry, I'm just trying to get clear on where this line is in the sand, because we're now spending $131 million on a royal commission after Albanese was bullied into it, by the way.
Yeah.
We don't need one. We don't need a whole bunch of paper shuffling and people to determine the fact that the Albanese government has done nothing about this. We know this because he met Yasser Arafat. Albanese is pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
He is pro this movement. But this is where I'm getting really frustrated. All we have heard since Bondi was right-wing extremism. We need to ban the nuts.
From Albanese, yes.
We need to ban the swastika, and they refuse to say radical Islam. And then we have things like this where everyone will go, well, hang on a minute, we need to be really careful. Everyone hold back. We've got to argue the minutiae here. I see what you're saying, but we don't do that on the other side.
No, but we should. So I'm trying to apply the exact same set of rules on both sides. Now, I acknowledge the hypocrisy is rank from the pro-Palestine crowd, from Albanese, all of that. That's true. But I'm not going to respond with reverse hypocrisy, right?
So
I'm trying to draw a framework.
If you were Prime Minister today, would you go back and repeal all of the hate speech laws that just got put through, as well as the banning the Nazi symbols and all that?
100%. And I would immediately legalise the carrying of firearms for self-defence, because I would love nothing more than for the next would-be terrorist to get his face blown off the minute he tries to start something. That's the actual answer here. The answer is individual self-defence. It always comes down to individuals.
Sorry to cut you off. I'm just trying to get to I'm pushing you hard today. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
With your comments though, like you're arguing as if you could change that, and I understand that, but the reality is we're at this point where those things are banned. There is hypocrisy.
Sure.
What can the step be made today, given that this is where we're at? How do we fix this with the situation as present?
Well, you've asked me to undo the Gordian knot. I'm not going to undo the Gordian knot. I'm going to cut it in half. We cannot fix this problem by fiddling with the settings that we've got. We've gone in entirely the wrong direction.
And unfortunately, that's what people want us to do.
Correct. And so I reject the premise of the question. It can't be fixed. We've gone in the wrong direction. It's like saying, how do I save fuel by driving a bigger car? It's like, well, that's the wrong. You've assumed into the question a premise that makes the answer impossible. We cannot work with the settings that we have. Banning hate speech, banning symbols, all that stuff doesn't work. It doesn't reduce people's hatreds. You cannot regulate people's beliefs and feelings. And honestly, we need hate to be in the open. I appreciate the fact that I know that Grace Tame is in my opinion, a racist little so-and-so. That's what I see when I hear those kinds of speeches. I appreciate knowing that. I appreciate knowing that Albanese is a hypocrite, right? I like the fact that that's public. What we need is to live in an Australia where people can actually defend themselves from anyone that would do them harm. Whether that's a petty criminal, whether that's an intimate partner, whether that's a terrorist, makes no difference. The individual is the ultimate, is the primal, not primal, has the primacy, is the supreme unit of any civilized country. The groups are not. So for Jewish people, they're being targeted because of their membership of the group, but actually, if they're there at an attack, they're being attacked individually. Bullets are being fired one at a time. It's at an individual level. The Jewish community was not attacked. The Jews who were there were attacked because they were a member of the Jewish community, granted. But individuals having the ability to protect themselves, right? I would like nothing more than to watch the NSN boys come face to face with some people willing to really push back on them. I think that'd be hilarious. That'd be tens of millions of views watching them cry like babies. I would love to see some rough justice being dished out. And honestly, in today's culture, I think we've softened our justice system so much, we've softened our cultural expectations so much, that rough justice is now frowned upon. Anyone that dishes it out is assumed to be the bad guy, and it's very difficult to convince people that maybe they're not. But honestly, the answer does not lie in fiddling with the settings that we have. The answer is in recognizing that we've gone completely the wrong direction, reversing course, repealing basically everything that we've done up to this point in time, and allowing people to provide for their own self-defense.
I agree with you, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
No, correct. But if you're asking me the question, that's the answer.
Yeah. And so I think this is where it gets murky, because like I agree with you 100%, but that's not going to happen. Yeah. And what we have is, what did you call it? The Gordian knot. Yeah,
we have it's a mythical sort of Greek mythology knot that can't be undone.
Well, we have that, and unfortunately, that's where we're acting from. But I want to read out Grace Tame's statement, because it's just full of narcissism. She put up a post on somewhere.
Yeah.
Politicians and the press can deflect onto me all they like, but I'm not the story, says you, who made yourself one of the lead speakers.
Yep.
The story is that Israel stands accused by the International Criminal Court of committing genocide in Gaza, and so far, after 2 years of innocent men, women and children being slaughtered, the only parties who face punishment are the victims themselves and critics of the state. They were acting within their rights and were met with unprovoked police brutality. In an earlier post, she took aim at police response to the protest, saying that she was disturbed and disgusted by the brutal, unprovoked state violence that unfolded. Innocent people were tear-gassed, shoved and harassed by police. Welcome to the dark side, Grace.
Yeah, well,
you weren't, though, of course.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously that's loaded up with all kinds of implications and assumptions that align with her worldview. Accused in the International Criminal Court is meaningless until someone's found guilty. The International Criminal Court is meaningless. It is a political body, not a legal one. So, you know, she's sort of hanging her hat on a whole bunch of claims and truths that she believes to be true, that I don't think hold any substance whatsoever. But this is an argument that we ought to be able to have. And honestly, if we rearmed society, we would actually be able to be a lot freer about what people were allowed to say.
All right, I think that's enough of that topic. Yep. Little update, I don't have much more on it, but I saw this pop up today that orders were lodged in the federal court yesterday where Daniel Andrews and Catherine Andrews have agreed to finally file their defense in the defamation trial. So, you know how you put up a couple of days ago that you have it on good authority that he is what he is. I also have had a little birdie come through, and I mean, honestly, it's speculation. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
And now the argument is that he's a private citizen. We shouldn't know his private medical thing. And I'd say, I
think there's a lot of public interest and legitimate public interest.
He was the premier of the state for 3 terms. I think there's public interest, and I think if there's something going on, we are privy to it. Sorry, I disagree with you wholeheartedly on that. And Daniel Andrews used those 3 terms of being a premier to set up a very comfortable life for himself. And I think as Victorian taxpayers who are currently paying him his retirement, I think we get to know.
Yep.
Sorry, I can't stand that. But interestingly, they have filed. There was a delay, and it's attributed to his health issues. So my birdie told me that he was in hospital longer than expected, but it's not as bad as everyone's making it out.
Okay, interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. It's one of these tricky ones. You know, there is the question of is he trying to do a Christopher Skase? Is he doing the whole wheelchair and breathing apparatus thing in order to get out of accountability for what's happened? So it's interesting to me. There's the lawsuit to do with defamation where Ryan Muellerman's family is suing the Andrews for defaming him, for saying that he was responsible for things that they don't believe he was. That'll be interesting. But obviously defamation, the penalty there is only civil. It's only financial. There's a financial settlement that comes out of defamation cases. Yeah. That's all. The more interesting side of it is whether we can actually get some movement on the fact that there was a cover-up, and that the fact that the cover-up came from Daniel Andrews himself and loyalists within Victoria Police who then sabotaged the investigation. And there are criminal charges that need to be laid against the police that failed to do their job properly. That is gross negligence at a minimum. And then
just expose the rot. This runs
that's
deep.
Right. And the issue, and I've said this so many times, but I'll say it again, the appearance of corruption is just as toxic as the reality of corruption.
Yeah.
And so you can sit there and go, oh, you know, but you're accusing the police of corruption. No, I'm saying that there is the appearance of corruption. It stinks to high heaven. It looks like there's been really awful corruption, and there needs to be lawsuits simply to get to the bottom of that, and at a minimum eliminate the appearance of corruption.
The smoking gun for me, I listened to the Bike Boy podcast, and the whole fact that his chief of staff or whatever was trying to get a replacement windscreen whilst he was still on the ground. I'm sorry, like that alone, that I can't get past that. That tells me that this is guilt, because
wipe away the evidence as quickly as possible.
I've got a chip in my windscreen that's been there for about 5 years.
Don't talk about that. That's not really.
I got it filled up, and then the holes come back. But I just look at it and go, meh, she's right. But you know, Daniel Andrews, I've just had a horrible car accident. There's someone dying on the side of the road. Do you know what I need to do? I need to get a new windscreen.
Yeah, I mean, the photographs that finally did get released tell very clearly the story that the car was moving faster than the bike.
And that the car was significantly damaged. The fact that it was allowed to be driven away with the windshield looking like that. Yeah,
with the windshield broken like that. So the first impact was in front of the front wheel on the driver's side. That's where the impact occurred with the bike. Now, if the bike's moving faster than the car, then the cyclist either gets crumpled into the side of the car or goes over the bonnet. If the car's moving faster than the bike, then the cyclist either goes down the side of the car or goes up over the top of the car. Right? We can see very, very clearly his pathway was up over the top of the car. It's very clear that the car was moving faster than the cyclist.
Yeah.
The laws of physics do not allow a slow-moving car, walking pace kind of car, which is what the Andrews have tried to claim, and a super fast bike. They've claimed that he went flying across that intersection recklessly, not even looking for cars.
A 13-year-old just like recklessly paddling at 80 kilometers an hour.
It could happen, not at 80, but he could have been going 35, 40 k's an hour on a decent bike. That's entirely possible. But the physics of the photographs, the physics that you can see played out in the photographs, put the lie to that. That car was clearly moving faster than the cyclist. The impact was all of the car into the inertia, the lack of speed of the cyclist. It wasn't the speed of the cyclist into the car. And so you just put things together like that. And then the fact that they moved the car without the police having taken measurements. So one of the ways that they check who was really driving was they'll measure where the seat is and the seat position before you move the car. It was all moved beforehand, before the police did any of that. They didn't do breath tests. So many rules were broken about this investigation or lack of investigation. And then the cover-up continued, in my view, into a lot of things that happened after the day as well. There are serious criminal questions to answer for the Andrews themselves and whether they have lied in their statements to police.
So, sorry to cut you off, but if they have lied and if there was a cover-up, can criminal charges against the Andrews then come about?
I don't know if there's a statute of limitations type issue.
That's what I was worried.
I don't know. Obviously, making a false statement to police is a criminal matter, but whether they could be charged in this particular case this many years later, I've no idea.
And the public don't want to hear that. They want heads to roll.
Well, I want heads to roll.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have the system that we have. There are safeguards in place. The statute of limitations type safeguards, and I'm not sure if we have them in Australia to the same degree. The statute of limitations is an American term that I'm using because everyone kind of knows what it means. It exists so that you don't end up in these sorts of court cases where people are like, well, it was so long ago, there isn't really any, I don't have the documents, I don't this or that, but let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people's
people's
memories over time are
when has Daniel Andrews ever lied?
All that sort of stuff. So the statute of limitations doesn't exist to protect criminals and help them get away with their crimes. It exists to protect against the courts being clogged up with opportunistic lawsuits or frivolous lawsuits or lawsuits based on nothing more than someone's dementia as they get older. And I think that is a necessary safeguard, but sometimes, unfortunately, it means that people get away with things they shouldn't.
Yeah. I also want his head to roll, just to reiterate. But, okay, moving on to our next one. New polling from YouGov puts One Nation at 28%. So just for clarity for anyone who wants to know how these work, it was a survey taken from the 3rd of February to the 10th with 1,561 Australians captured One Nation's 3-point jump among working class voters at 34%.
Yeah. Ahead of Labor in the working class, by the way.
Yeah, fueled by immigration backlash after the deadly Bondi attack. And Labor holds a 54-46 two-party preferred edge over the coalition, whose internal splits, Liberals at 14%, Nationals at 1%, highlight its struggles 9 months after Labor's May 2025 landslide. So look at these numbers. Let me make it bigger.
Great. This is so good. So the numbers are, for those that are listening, is Labor at 30%. Which that's the lowest I've seen them get put at in any poll so far. One Nation at 28%, matching their best so far. LNP, am I reading that as 17%? 19%. Okay, so that's actually a stronger showing for them than we've seen. Greens at 12, Independents are down, and other are down. So that's where the numbers have come from. So a strong showing for the Liberal Party compared to others. And I assume that's actually the LNP. LNP. So that's what it is. They've rolled the Nationals back in with the Liberal number. That's what that is. Okay. And so, yes, ALP well ahead on two-party preferred. Now, there's a couple of really interesting details here. Firstly, they mentioned in the copy that you just read there, Carly, that amongst the surge for One Nation has come from the working class.
Yeah.
The working class have finally woken up to the fact that Labor are not their friends.
Correct.
This is a seismic shift in Australian politics. This was always the opportunity for One Nation, and it's really amazing to watch that now translating into at least polls. Obviously, polls and election results are two different things. People say, well, how can the ALP still be so far ahead in two-party preferred? Here's the issue. They are using the two-party preferred split based on what happened at the last election. And based on those numbers, only about 29% of, if you take all the parties other than Labor, right, because it's assumed that in a lower house seat, it'll end up being between the Labor candidate and the One Nation candidate. So it comes down to two-party preferred between them. If you look at the preferences of everyone except Labor voters at the last federal election, only about 29% of preferences would have flowed to One Nation. About 71% of preferences would have flowed to Labor. So in other words, they put Labor above One Nation on their ballot. And so that's the preference flow that they have to use because they haven't got data to show another preference flow. Now, I think that that's not necessarily wrong. And here's my thinking on this. If you're going to favour One Nation, you're much more likely to put them at number one. If you're not putting them at number one, because they're the new party, they're the protest, not new as in, but they've risen. They're the protest party. If you support them, you support them. You're putting them at number one. If you're not putting them at number one or two, you're probably putting them behind the majors, right? Which is both Liberal and Labor. You're probably the kind of person, oh no, that's that right-wing extremist, whatever, right? And so, unfortunately, they're going to get a strong primary vote, I believe, in coming elections. And I want to talk about the South Australian election in a minute because there's some really important messaging stuff around that. I think they'll get a strong primary vote and weak preferences. Yeah. I think that is baked into the cake at this point.
Their preference flow is almost irrelevant. You need to have people putting them one on the ballot.
Correct.
Otherwise, there's no win.
One or two. Like I'll put them at number two because I will put the Libertarians at number one because I am a Libertarian, but the Libertarians are not winning any lower house seats.
Yeah.
Sorry, they're not. They're not getting a single one. They'll hopefully get a couple of senators, but that's as good as it's going to get for them. But I will put them at number one because I am a Libertarian, and I'll put One Nation at number two. So the issue there is going to be they are in reality going to get weak preference flows. So we need to see their primary number getting into the 40s.
Yeah.
That's actually where we need to see them in order for them to have a realistic chance of picking up lower house seats.
What do we got? 2027?
Yeah,
the election?
It'll be. Hang on, no, because it was only 9 months ago we had one, so it'll be 2028.
Okay. Same as the US.
Yeah, but I think it's before the end of 2028.
I think if things don't change, and I don't think they will change because Albo won't go backwards.
The economy is going to keep getting worse.
I think interest rates will continue to go up again because Labor just cannot get their spending under control.
Yep.
I think mass migration, this will be a new social contagion. And all of a sudden, I will say this, it is now becoming more popular to be conservative. It's no longer the taboo it was.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of not the fence sitters, the people who maybe didn't speak up against woke will be like, oh, now I
have the chance,
be who I am.
So we've got a really interesting 2 years. I'm going to call it 2 years ahead. It's not quite 2 years between now and the next federal election. I genuinely think that if Albo thinks he can get away with it, he's going to try and prescribe One Nation as a hate group prior to the next election. Yeah. But that'll be a relatively late play. That'll be 3 months before the election. Try and not give them enough time to regroup or challenge it in court and get on the ballot. Because obviously everything, all of your returns, all of your paperwork has to be in for all of your candidates with the AEC with a certain amount of lead time in order for you to be on the ballot. Yeah. So they'll try and time it so that the One Nation party will still be tied up in court by the time those deadlines pass and they can't get on the ballot. That's my view. Now, I think if there's enough awareness, then we can head that off at the pass. We can make that not viable for Albanese, but that's a late play. Before then, we've got a number of other plays. The Liberal Party are trying to save their skin. They're fighting for their survival at this point in time. And they are going to find narratives to support the idea, or essentially to fearmonger around the rise of One Nation. Yeah. The South Australian election gives them their first opportunity to do that. So that's
You're going to talk about this. Well, I'm just going to excuse myself because my bladder can't hold on.
I will talk to all of you lovely people out there. Camera on me. Thank you.
This is how uninterested I am. No, joking.
So the South Australian election is 5 weeks away. And the One Nation Party are not polling as well in South Australia as what they are in other parts of Australia. So around Australia, they're up around 28%, 27, 28%. In South Australia, it's more like 20%. Now, that means that they're doing really well in other states, particularly Queensland has always been kind of their home, their strong state, but other parts of Australia as well, they're doing really well. But in South Australia, not so much. Now, what that means is South Australia are very unlikely to pick up any lower house seats, but they're taking away from the ability for the Liberal Party to get any lower house seats as well. And it's very, very likely, the way things are looking at the moment, I think it's about a 56-54 two-party preferred split with Labor well in the lead in South Australia and likely to absolutely romp it in. Some preferences will bleed off from One Nation people to Labor before Liberal, and other, from Liberal voters, preferences will bleed off to Labor over One Nation. So we won't even be able to directly combine the Liberal and One Nation votes to try and get to a majority to win a lower house seat. That even that math won't quite work. So we're going to end up in a situation where the result in South Australia is going to be extremely good for Labor. And I'm sorry, no disrespect to the One Nation team that are going to be obviously working their asses off to try and change that. 5 weeks is not long enough. One Nation are rising, and I think you're going to put up a good fight. But I'm sorry, I don't see anything moving the needle enough to get One Nation to be winning lower house seats in South Australia, let alone a majority of lower house seats in South Australia. I'm sorry, I just don't see that happening. So the danger then becomes that the Liberal Party will go on full blast, full noise across the whole of Australia, saying the rise of One Nation is the reason why Labor won so big. If it weren't for One Nation splitting the vote, then we could have put up more of a fight against the Labor Party. And now South Australia is held in the grip of the biggest Labor majority in history, and it's because of One Nation. And they're going to use this as a fear campaign, as a fear-mongering campaign to try and tell people that you've done the wrong thing by supporting One Nation. You've handed victory to Labor. You've given them the biggest majority ever. Now, I'm really loving the memes that are going around at the moment where, the One Nation are telling the Liberal and National parties that the minor right parties should disband and let them. I'm enjoying the tongue-in-cheekness of that. All the reversing all the messaging that One Nation has been subject to over the years. But we need to get ahead of this messaging now. The Liberals would not be in this situation if they hadn't abandoned their values. Them trying to say, this is One Nation's fault because One Nation now occupied the place that the Liberal Party used to occupy, because One Nation actually are a better reflection of the values expressed by the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party We Believe statement is very closely aligned with the policies of the One Nation Party and very poorly aligned with the policies of the Liberal Party. They've abandoned their principles. So it's their fault. But they're going to try and externalise this. Then we're going to have the Victorian election, November 28, I think it is, this year. I don't think One Nation are going to win Victoria either. I'm sorry, I don't see it happening. Now, Victoria is going to be a very contentious election. What's her name? The Premier. Jacinda Allen is desperately unpopular, but the Liberal Party cannot get oxygen. They keep on shooting themselves in the foot. One Nation historically is weak in Victoria. It doesn't do well, so it's unfortunate that the two state elections coming up are both states where One Nation does more poorly compared to Queensland and New South Wales. And so again, we're going to get that messaging again. In Victoria, it's likely to be a Labor win. I'm sorry, I'm not. I mean, I know a lot of people hate Jacinda Allen, but I'm not seeing the momentum. I'm not seeing the campaign. I'm not seeing the messaging and the cut through that's needed. So it's likely to be another Labor win, and we will have another round of the Liberal Party saying that's because people abandoned the Liberal Party for One Nation.
Yeah.
And the truth is, no, it's because the Liberal Party abandoned their values. And so staying the course and keeping new membership coming on, keeping new people coming over to One Nation in the face of that messaging is going to be a really important thing over the next 12 months.
Yeah. So just on Jacinda Allen, we're going to move on to the next story, which is this one. This just popped up today. So Labor knew of the CFMEU corruption and did nothing. Yep. A new redacted report has come out. So famously... Sorry,
I think I need to correct that headline. Labor was involved in the CFMEU corruption and did nothing.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly. So when you talk about Victoria is interesting because I agree that the Liberal Party here is so bad, but I also think now people hate Labor so much. The Liberal Party won't win because they were a viable option, just because
they'll
people
stumble over the finishing line.
Yeah, I really do think they'll Stephen Bradbury it. And I will say...
Don't insult Stephen Bradbury like that. Gosh, what a horrible thing to say.
I will say, even though I don't think she's the right candidate, I'm pleasantly surprised with the way that Jess Wilson carries herself.
Now, you said that on Monday, and I meant to make the comment, but then the conversation moved on. I've had some very staunch, very solid libertarian friends of mine tell me that my view of Jess Wilson is wrong, that her instincts are good and that she's actually really good value. And I've pushed back on that in private conversation. I won't repeat private conversations. I certainly have some concerns. But yes, you're not the first person to tell me that actually she seems like she's not as bad as was feared.
Well, okay, so not as bad as what's feared, but I mean, if we're playing a dirty game, right? So I'm looking at what I have in front of me and I'm trying to bake a cake with the ingredients in front of me.
Sure.
I can't go to the store and buy more ingredients, right? So that's the best analogy I can use.
Can we go to Venezuela and borrow go to Argentina and borrow a president?
Or El Salvador.
Look, hey, I'll take him.
So yeah, I'm just looking at what's in front of me and I go, okay, like Jacinta Allen is so, I think it would be fair to say she is hated more than Daniel Andrews. Daniel Andrews wins people because of COVID. I mean this because in people's minds, he still saved lives. I know we all disagree with that, but that's in there, like that's locked in.
In their bubble.
Jacinta Allen hasn't done anything since she took over.
Yeah.
And she's claiming, the infrastructure and all that, but that realistically...
It all started under Daniel.
It started under Dan. And so when you look at what's happening, she's taken hit after hit after hit, and she's getting it wrong. The biggest issue for Victorians right now is the crime.
Sure.
That is it. And all these other issues, mass migration, cost of living and all that, yes, that's all important. The number one thing is people are being robbed in their homes. Mm-hmm. And the things that they're working for, they're now paying more for insurances. Everyone's car insurance is going up. Your home and contents insurance is going up. And that's just exacerbated by the cost of living, interest rate rises, whatever. I don't think she will win because she is detestable. And then things like this, the CFMEU and all that. I actually don't think this pushes the needle too much with your average person.
It's a little bit like to use a very different but same example, it's like when people accuse Trump of being a womanizer. It's like, it doesn't move the needle. Everyone's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, maybe he is, but he's got good policies. With Jacinta Allen, her policies are terrible, and we're seeing this. She was literally on the team that allowed for more bail reform to put us in this position. And after all of this, pump and ceremony about we're going to have the toughest bail laws, nothing has changed.
Happened,
I think it was just before I left, G was on X and he's like, Victoria's continuing on their theme. It's another horrible accident on the Monash, people running away with machetes, day after day. It's so bad now it doesn't get reported. And I'm just
and a lot of it doesn't even get reported to police.
Yeah.
So I sat down with John Lott, who's an international crime expert, for an interview last week. And he said that of sexual and sort of intimate crimes, only about 19% get reported in Australia. And the reason we know that is because the Australian Bureau of Statistics does a survey, I believe every year, where they actively go out and survey people about crime victimisation. So rather than relying on them coming and reporting to police, they're actually saying, well, here are the definitions of the crimes. Have any of these happened to you over the last year? And that finds 5 times greater levels of that kind of crime than what is actually recorded in the police statistics. And so what we're finding now, of course, is shopkeepers aren't reporting theft. Why bother? The police won't even attend.
Yeah.
Some people aren't reporting even much more serious crimes and violent crimes because why bother? This is just how we live now. This is sort of the Gotham City effect has kicked in,
which is terrifying because this is the new status quo. And you still have people, still have your staunch Labor voters who are defending it, going, no, we're doing the right thing. She's been tough on crime. No, she hasn't. Yeah. Nothing has happened. And this is why I think she'll lose. But I just want to go back to this article because, I know this is not going to change the mind of the average voter, but it just shows that the rot has been there for decades. It's so bad that, nothing of this is shocking. So basically, it was a heavily redacted section, and the Queensland Commission of Inquiry this week has moved to compel the release of deleted chapters that were first reported by The Age and obtained independently by The Australian. In the redacted section, Mr. Watson said the excess of the CFMEU were not secret and had been widely reported as early as 2010. By 2014, the year Daniel Andrews was elected, there was further reporting revealing how the CFMEU was selling EBAs to crime figures. Victorians have been aware for years that the union has become extremely aggressive, and this was causing delays and cost blowouts to government jobs. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think the CFMEU is enough to get people upset, but I think if a Victorian knows that the reason they're paying extraordinarily more taxes is because of those infrastructure projects and because of corruption, that's a different story. Yeah. It needs to be painted that way.
The debt is what it is largely because of infrastructure projects. Those infrastructure projects were as expensive as they were and blew out as much as they did in large part because of actions by the CFMEU.
Yeah.
There is a direct correlation, and it was literally to put money into members' pockets and to siphon money back into political donations. That's what they were doing. When was it? They recently, I think it was Setka's last round of kind of argy-bargy with the government over pay for CFMEU workers. He won, he got what he wanted, and he said, I think his comment was, there won't be enough Ford Rangers in Australia.
Can I just show this photo of John Setka? Like, you know how I said before the 30,000-foot view of high school behaviour? What a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so tough. Look at my tattoo. God forgives, but the CFMEU does. You think you're tough. I mean, having said that, I'm probably going to get a knock at the door. But what a loser.
Yeah.
This is the guy in charge of CFMEU. I'm so tough.
And he wouldn't stand up for his members.
Nah.
But also, like, I'm so tough. He wouldn't tell the members the truth to their face. He wouldn't. Now, remember when he was out the front, right? He lied to the members and then went upstairs and stabbed them in the back, like, oh yeah, I'm a CFMEU, till I die. Well, those were CFMEU members. You lied to their faces.
He called them Nazis.
Yeah, but he called them Nazis on the radio, not to their face. But he's such a coward that he couldn't say to them the truth of what he was going to say.
Yeah.
On the radio, he didn't have the guts for that. He had to lie to their faces so that he could get his skin out of there, and then go and stab them in the back on the radio.
I look at his face and I just go, what a loser. He's the kind of guy that should have been bullied extensively in
maybe he was,
in high school. Okay, so there's a couple of key quotes. So Mick Gatto, obviously underworld crime figure. We all know Mick Gatto from Underbelly. These are just some quotes from the Watson report. Gatto's connections to the former leadership of the CFMEU started at the top. He is best mates with John Setka. His connections with the CFMEU were so powerful that Gatto could order the CFMEU to stop work on any building site. Gatto told a developer attempting to finish a project, I can say stop doing anything, mate. John Miles. Several of Miles' circles were bikies or former bikies. Several had convictions for violent crimes. One had even killed a man, while the others were convicted of drug trafficking and known drug users. Shackleton was a professional boxer with close personal ties to Gatto. Strippers on site. This is what we're paying for, guys. This is Daniel Andrews' legacy. The report found that women employed as peggies or cleaners on more than $100,000 a year were recruited from strip clubs. Some of those women were being recruited from strip clubs. During the night shift, the men would pay cash to have the women perform in the site shed.
Charming.
Wonderful.
No wonder they were so keen on overtime.
I'm just going to... Victorians, are you proud? Are you happy? This is where your money's going. Let's just remember this. I'll keep going.
CFMEU were the first organisation, the first union to offer jobs with happy endings.
Right. Now, what have I done? I'm trying to change it back. Hang on. All right. I've pressed too many buttons. Another one. Corrupt entrepreneurs. Corruption was made easier because of the greed of the entrepreneurs seeking entry into the labour hire industry. The labour hire sector of the Victorian building industry has emerged as the single most corrupt part of that industry. Most major players in the labour hire have paid bribes to obtain their position. Payments were then continued to protect their position. Because it was so lucrative, it has attracted the interest of the worst kind of criminals. And then we've got overpaid union delegates. It keeps going.
It's just brown paper bags full of cash going in every direction.
Yeah, and there's another one here, $10,000 for a weekend. Workers on the Hurstbridge rail upgrade were paid up to $10,000 for a weekend when the railway was closed for construction. Work on the Hurstbridge sites were among the most lucrative for CFMEU members. Double time or even triple time was common. When working on the Occo, a worker could be paid $5,000 to $10,000 for a weekend. Occasionally, it was even more. And then the last one, John Setka's secret houses. He had a property portfolio that includes 4 homes. He has taken measures to deliberately conceal his interests. It is not clear how a man on his salary, fully devoted to union duties, could afford such a portfolio.
Yes, a little bit like Nancy Pelosi being able to trade stocks better than, what's his name?
Buffett.
Maybe, yeah, better than Warren Buffett. So you've got a situation here where you're right, what you said earlier. People have to realize all of this has come out of our pockets. All of the money that was being slushed around, all of the brown paper bags, all of the kickbacks, ultimately every single dollar was coming from Victorian taxpayers.
Yeah.
This is why Victoria has spent so much money and has so little to show for it. It's so that people like him could live high on the hog, living their life, accruing their houses, no doubt blowing a lot of money on all kinds of different things. The rate of cash churn would be enormous, I would guess. And ultimately, the average Victorian, especially the ones that are just working day jobs and doing their best and doing the right thing, are the ones that are funding all of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they fund the Labor Party because of all of the union kickbacks. So the union, sorry, not kickbacks, that would be corrupt. The union election funding and donations that they make.
Yeah, it's just so gross. I do think, though, for the 2026 year, there is going to be, maybe not in the way we want it. We want to see heads roll. We want to see institutions burnt down. I get all that. But I think we are seeing cracks that cannot be repaired.
People's patience is reaching its limits.
It's evaporated, I would say.
Well, we're being squeezed by cost of living pressures. People are struggling to make ends meet. Thanks to social media, we are now more aware of a lot of these problems. We're not relying on the mainstream media, although I will admit that on some of these stories, actually, the mainstream media is still doing a decent job. They are actually providing a public service.
I actually think, and as always is the case when things are democratized, but the mainstream media now has competition. So they can't just do what they were doing. With the rise of independent commentators and independent journalism and just citizen journalism and social media at large, the mainstream media has one choice: be better at it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Correct.
You got to be a better journalist. You got to be better at it, and no longer can you push propaganda. People won't stomach it.
And use your resources to do things that the citizen journalist and the podcaster doesn't have the resources to do.
Yeah, and use your connections. I mean, like for us to go and get a head of state on a podcast is quite an effort.
I'd have to make a phone call. It'd be gosh. But yes, for most people, I'm being facetious, of course. It would only be like a Secretary of State, not an actual head of state. So
I want to get Pauline on this podcast.
I'd love to get Pauline on. And
she follows me on Instagram.
She's doing some podcasts at the moment. She's an absolute delight in person. I would love to get her in person. But obviously,
we could fly up to
she's
her.
In Queensland. We could fly up to her, yeah.
Queensland holiday?
Queensland, well, yeah.
Pauline
working
and
holiday.
anyone in Pauline's office, and the people who follow me on Instagram from Pauline's office.
Well, if you're serious about it, I can make a phone call. But
I would like to. Okay. I think tell us in the comments. I reckon we should.
And how are we funding the airfares? Because that's a long way to ride my push bike.
We'll figure it out. My dictator's colouring book.
I'm glad you finished that.
The Big Dick colouring book. Yeah, oh my God, that's the title.
Yeah.
The Big Dick colouring book. Tell me, is this not an amazing idea? I think it's brilliant. And I'm going to enjoy doing it.
Help me, everybody. Please help me.
I'm full of ideas like this.
You're full of something.
Yes. I didn't tell my fun story.
Okay. It gets more fun.
It's a story I told you and you're like, you should say this on the podcast.
Oh, yes.
No, it's weird if I just say it now.
But it's travel related. Okay, so got to set the scene a little bit. So I walk in today and on your table, it looks like you're preparing an arts and crafts session for 4-year-olds. There's like textures over here and there's stickers there and I'm like all kinds of weird bits and bobs. Half of it I don't even know what it is. And so I said to you, are you getting into like childcare or something? Like
starting a creche.
Yeah,
well, I hear it's lucrative in Minnesota.
You don't even need to have clients. And so I gave you a hard time about that. And then you joked about, you sort of picking up all the different bits and bobs and crap, and you were actually impressed with yourself that you hadn't brought home a lot more. And then I mentioned hand warmers, and then remembered actually we'd given you a couple of hand warmers,
and they came in useful.
And then you told me this story.
So just to recap, the yen's quite weak at the moment, so your dollar goes a little bit further. And I love stationery, so that's what he was picking on me for, because I went and bought a lot of stationery.
And it was, to be fair, it was stationery. None of it was going anywhere.
And cosmetics. I bought a lot of Japanese skincare. But amongst all that were just
That's
some
why
fun...
your eyes are a bit... No.
Shut up. I bought a bunch of fun things from the Japanese pharmacy and Don Quixote, which is the big mega mart thing that they have. And did you go in there? I will never get that song out of my head now. Don 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 donkey don don da 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 ba da 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 do.
I mean, look, it's a good tune, but it's no Tangent Time.
I know, but it plays on a loop as you've got neons and signs and things flashing at you.
So we did the waterfront in Dotonbori, and then we discovered this whole other area, because we thought Dotonbori was literally the waterfront. That's what we thought it was. And then we discovered this mall, and it's like, that is way too overwhelming. That is too much stimulation. It is too late at night. We're going back to the hotel.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually walk through it.
So for when we were traveling around, the temperature and the climate changes significantly depending where you were. And we went down to Hiroshima and we were looking at the weather, and it said it was actually quite mild, and it was like beautiful bluebird days. But we were going on a ferry over to Miyajima, which is where the floating torii gate is, and the deers, and there's a temple and stuff there. And my own fault. I normally was wearing heat tech, what do you call it? Thermals.
Yeah.
And because it was mild and we were actually getting quite warm walking around the city, I was wearing a ski jacket as well. And I was like, oh, I'm actually a bit too hot. So I'm just going to downgrade the layer today.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had given us those hand warmers and they actually hand them out at the hotel as well. So you can pick up a few.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really needed them at this point. I had them on me, but I had gloves as well. So I wasn't cold at any point until we got to Miyajima and we were walking and I wasn't wearing my thermal underlay. And I said to G, I'm like...
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry in advance.
This is
so sorry.
Genius. Anyway, we're walking around and I can't believe I'm saying this on the podcast.
I'm sorry, everyone.
I was so cold that my nipples could cut glass to the point where they were aching. I was that cold. I was like literally like hypothermic at this point.
So
why is it on you? I'm telling the story.
I'm just imagining like an Austin Powers moment where he has to cut through glass. And he's like, I need something sharp.
I could have done it. They were stronger than diamonds.
You would have been two equal holes side by side. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. What have I done with my life?
Everyone's talking about my boobs now. Anyway, I was so cold. And I couldn't do anything. We're on an island. And G's like, why don't you, genius on his path, why don't you put your hand warmers in there? And I was like, wait a minute. This is a great idea. So I nick off around the corner and then shunk. And then all of a sudden, because they're skin activated. So once they touch your body, they start to get warm. And then all of a sudden, I was like, wow, this was brilliant. And I'm walking around all day going, I feel fantastic. It was ingenious.
I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry.
This is what we call MacGyvering, guys. I survived. I could take that to Everest and climb the summit with
the
those
rest of
warmers.
you would freeze, but soft nipples.
But not my nipples.
I mean, you know. So out of that story, though, I am questioning whether G is as much of a red-blooded man as how he presents himself. Because
because his girlfriend was getting very upset.
If he was a true red-blooded man, he wouldn't have suggested your hand warmers. He would have suggested his hands.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to give that away, but we were walking around and it was like all the ladies in the chat will know what I'm talking about. It was painful. And at this point, I'm close to tears because it was really painful. And then that was the problem solved. Ingenious.
With the hand warmers.
With the hand warmers.
I gave her.
Not yours. I'd already used yours at this point.
Okay, well that makes me
don't try and claim part of this story.
But you didn't clarify that when you told me. I was traumatized the whole time.
No. Anyway, now that I've said that, I had one more story, but I don't want to end on a really sad note. So,
can it wait till Monday?
No. Because we haven't talked about it for a few weeks, and I feel like we should.
We're going to have a big downer right at the end, are we?
A little one. It's not a little one; it's a big one.
Yeah.
I just feel like this story's not getting enough time. And the reason being because everyone's too scared to touch it, I think, for obvious reasons.
Well, I mean, they've successfully put a pretty strong embargo on information. There is a little bit of information coming out. But
there was a moment the internet worked and a bit got out.
Yeah.
And it's estimated almost 100,000 have been killed. And now the Iranian regime has been walking into hospitals and shooting protesters who are
find
wounded.
Injured people and just go, yep, we assume that you were injured at a protest. So
yeah.
Yep.
So a couple of things. I don't know enough about Iran and I don't know enough about what's happened. So I'm not going to speculate and try and, whip people up into a frenzy. It's bad and we're not talking about it. And I thought rather than talk about the people dying, because it's horrific and I don't want to end the podcast in a terrible way, especially when I don't actually know. But can we just talk about what cutting the head off the snake would mean for the Western world if we went after the Ayatollahs? So I don't think people understand just how powerful Iran is in the Palestine movement, in the global terror movement, and also the anti-West sentiment.
Sure.
So everyone's like, I don't want a US-led regime change. This is more than that. And I understand why you don't want that. I get it. But these people are the ones funding all of these cells across the world.
Yeah, and that is absolutely correct. And part of me says, well, if it's good enough in Venezuela, take Maduro, and then that the regime has to take a friendlier tone with you from now on.
Do you mean take Ayatollah?
No. So in Venezuela, they kidnapped Maduro, but they left the rest of the administration in place. But now they've had to be a bit softer. They've had to be a bit nicer. Could there be an option? Obviously, Iran, they're not going to be able to send in a capture team in the same way, but. We know that they can send B-2s and take out targets. Is that the right approach? Does that make things worse? I mean, I don't have the intel to be able to know. I'll reiterate what we talked about the other week, though, that Trump saying help is on the way, unfortunately, has proven, and then help not really materializing. Has, I think, contributed to an enormous number of these deaths.
I would agree.
And I think that's tragic. I think it's a tragic consequence of Trump sometimes shooting from the hip. And a lot of good people have lost their lives because they believed
they were going to be saved. If
they could just keep the pressure on, then something is Trump's. At any moment, bombs are going to fall. At any moment, something's going to happen. And then something didn't happen. And now, reports of up to 100,000 dead. Mass murder. There was a little while there they said, okay, we'll put a stay on executions, blah, blah, blah. But the minute the heat was off them, they've clearly gone back to just mass slaughter. Horrific situation. And my heart goes out to them. But from here, I mean, it really is a case where again, I've told this analogy before. It's on the one hand, it's not our business. On the other hand, if your neighbor down the end of your street is getting shot up by their next door neighbor and they're coming to you saying, listen, I need your help, at some point you have a moral obligation to actually go, okay, I'll answer the call. I'll come and help. At some point that stops being imperialism and it starts being just responding to a desperate and real human need.
Yeah.
And I think in the case of Iran, we've well and truly reached that point. What does that need to look like? I would suggest a decapitation strike would be probably one of the least bloody options. Yeah,
take out the leaders.
Yeah.
It's like what they've been doing, Israel was doing with Hamas, though. They were taking out Hamas in, was it Qatar or no? Where did they take them out?
Well, with the pages and all of that.
No, wasn't it? They got them in a residential tower. Am I...
I'm not sure which particular story you're talking about.
Anyway, I think... This is the year where there's a reckoning with heads of state, particularly people like this. And the reason the West and the Free Palestine movement won't talk about this, and the reason they're standing with people holding the Iranian regime flag is that this doesn't work because you are anti-colonialism, white man bad, and this is a brown man being bad. And this is a level of colonization from an Arab. That's that right. You don't like.
It is colonialism. It is Islamic colonialism.
Yeah, 100%. And this is all stemming back from the Crusades and the Ottoman Empire and what happened there. None of these countries were Muslim up until a certain point. And the Iranian regime, they took over in the 70s?
Current regime
76?
Is something like that. Yep.
And for 45, 50 years, they've been living in this state of fear. They don't want to be Muslim. And it's interesting people talking about this. I've been looking at this a lot. And again, I claim ignorance on this. I only know what I've read and I can't be sure that what I'm reading is not propaganda. I don't know. But I've spoken to plenty of Iranians who have migrated here to Australia or to the US, and I talk to them in my DMs and things like that, and they tell me what they know. So that's their first-hand experience, and I take it as their word. But with a lot of this stuff, if the choice was to be Muslim or not, many Iranians would not be.
Sure.
And that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Because what is the pro-Palestine movement all about? Is about putting a Muslim majority back into areas of Israel. It's pushing a caliphate. It is globalizing the Intifada. You cut the head off the Iranian snake, not steak. Boom, all of that.
A lot of the funding disappears. The sentiment won't disappear overnight, but a lot of the funding disappears.
It'd be set back decades.
It would no longer be possible to sustain a lot of the structures.
Biden or was it Obama that allowed Iran to have all that frozen money?
Don't recall. I'm going to Daniel Andrews my way through that one.
Biden releases...
We do need to wind up. We're approaching 3 hours and we've got work to do before I then jump in the car and head home. But
$16 billion of Iranian funds was handed over by Biden.
But thank you for bringing us down. to finish.
I can tell you another story about my nipples.
Look, let's just stick with genocide and mass murder. I think that's probably
better?
That's a less bad way to finish. Yeah.
Well, other good news is we have a handful of tickets left to our live show.
We do. Okay, so we've done the final numbers, and so someone went, when I talked about it on Monday, someone in the comments said, "Oh, they've sold out now." And I went and looked later, and no more had sold. And then I realized, actually, for some reason, Shopify had made it sold out on the Shopify. When actually we've got tickets left. So only a few, but there are some there.
Was it like 4 or 5 or so?
Yeah, so as soon as we're finished, part of the work we have to do is we need to figure out exactly how many tickets do we have remaining, because we cannot exceed 200 people in the room, including like us and everyone that's helping. Exactly how many tickets do we have, and then we'll make those available. So by the time you're watching this, and if you're watching to the end, we're going to assume you're a pretty hardcore Oddie. You're the kind of person that we want to get online and buy these last remaining tickets.
It's all happening because today, after this, we have to sit down and figure out what we're doing, where things are going, what we have to order.
Correct.
We've got to choose the menu.
Another merch order. We've got an email that we were supposed to have already returned to them to choose menus and things like that.
And we also have Oddie merch.
We have Oddie merch on the way.
Available for purchase at the event.
Yeah, at the event, correct. So we are not going to make that available online until after the event. So if you are coming to the first birthday party, you will be the first people with the new Oddie merch.
And it doesn't look like the one that you've already bought.
There you go.
It's different.
Okay. All right. I haven't even seen it.
Yeah,
that's how much I trust your design
choices.
I
changed it.
You changed it?
I like making things a little bit...
Please explain.
Just a little bit different. We have to choose the canapes.
Yes, well, let's do that off air because I don't think that's going to make particularly thrilling podcasting.
No. Further to that, I reckon that we need guests, and I want to know who you want us to have on there.
100% we do. So let us know. Now, also, before you go, head over to get your spot at the Getting Your Head in the Game Masterclass. So that's on the shop as well. That's going to be commencing in March, but first in Best Dressed, and there's an early bird special on at the moment. That price is not going to last forever. So jump in and get yourself into the Getting Your Head in the Game Masterclass while it's cheap. We've got the birthday party.
Cheap. Don't say it's cheap.
Well, it's cheap. Cheap as chips.
Who's that bloke?
And yeah, 8 sessions. They run monthly from March until October. I ran this for the first time in 2024. What I'm talking about in this is what got me out of the worst year of my life in 2024 into the best year of my life in 2025. Made a huge difference for me, made a huge difference for the 50 people that joined. I limited it to 50 people in 2024. That's all I wanted to have to sort of deal with. So that was amazing, and the feedback was amazing. I'm going to be doing some interviews with a couple of people in coming weeks to be able to help you guys know more about sort of what that was and the impact that it had for people. But come along. So that's going to help you to make 2026 and beyond the best years that you've ever had.
Most excellent. All right. Well, on that note.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye?
I guess.
We should have a way to end the show.
We need like a jingle.
Don, 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 donkey, don, don, da, da,
I was just about to sing the I Like Aeroplane Jelly song, but you know what? Either is good. I'm out.